Hey hunters! Welcome back to the only HXH audiobook cult on YouTube, triumphant face emoji. Today we're diving into Sheng Sang. You can skip ahead if you want, I ramble a little more than usual this time lol. So quick heads up, the title won't make much sense anymore. The original MC was called Sheng Sang, but I've renamed her to Amber. Very original girl name, I know. Then a quick rundown. The MC is a girl with a wishing ability who gets yeeted into the HXH world by some random god. And wait. Don't click off just cause the MC's female, give it a chance. I actually enjoyed reading it while editing, and it gets really good later on, I swear. There's also Hunter exam later. Okay, enough of me trying to get you to watch this lol. This one's a Chinese fanfic I had to translate chapter by chapter, fixing grammar, names, and getting all stuff right. So, you know. Maybe like for my suffering lol. As always, check the description for the original author and fanfic. And check the community tab too, we're not bots, we actually post stuff there sometimes. If you enjoy the audiobooks, a like helps a lot. And of course, hit that sub button if you haven't already and officially become a hunter. Alright, that's enough from me. Let's dive in. Peace. Love y'all. Headphone emoji, blue heart emoji. Chapter 1. I had a strange dream. In an empty white room, without any furniture, decorations, or even doors or windows, there was only a little girl with long hair, sitting cross-legged in the air, looking at me with a smile. You're here. After our eyes met, she slowly landed on the ground, tilted her head, and smiled. Am I dreaming? I asked her subconsciously. No, this is not a dream. This is reality, but it's different from the reality you know. To put it simply, this is a space created by God. God's creation? I was stunned for a moment. Although I'm not an atheist, this kind of surreal thing. I must be dreaming. Think whatever you want. Anyway, I'll convey all the information to you now. It's up to you whether to believe it or not. The little girl stood in front of me with a smile. Her thin figure looked very fragile, she seemed to be only about 10 years old. Who are you? I asked her. I've already said this is a space created by God, so of course I'm God, idiot. I was still half confused. In fact, things like divine creation felt completely unreal. No matter what she said, I still felt like I was dreaming. So you brought me here? I continued to ask. Of course. Why? Don't worry. God doesn't do meaningless things, so I must have brought you here for a reason. The current situation is that, due to some unspeakable reasons, I've chosen you to be sent to another world. This place is like a transit station. I'll explain some necessary things to help you get familiar with the environment over there. What? I was a little confused. Teleportation? Another world? Yeah. She nodded seriously. What kind of world? Let me think. According to your world, it's a world where perverts and weirdos are rampant, and there are many cute little boys. Hey. What the hell is this? Do they really have to set things up so dramatically from the start? I looked at her with disdain. That sounds terrible. Can I refuse? Of course not. Why choose such a strange world? It's not as weird as people say. That world just has things your world doesn't, more complex professions, abilities, rare creatures. Things like that. The laws are relatively loose. In front of high-level players, the police and judiciary are basically just for show. That world has a more intricate system of checks and balances. I can't explain it all, but you'll understand once you experience it. I listened quietly. After she finished, I continued, why did you choose me to go to that world? I can't tell you that, she answered innocently. You won't even tell me something that important? How am I supposed to accept this? Even gods have to keep secrets. Idiot. Idiot. I was getting annoyed. When will this weird, absurd dream end? And now. She suddenly changed her tone and continued cheerfully, to help you better adapt to the environment there, I've decided to let you start directly as a so-called high-level player. A very small number of people in that world have a power called Nen. I'll explain the details later. Before that, I can give you an ability based on your wish. Any ability at all. Want one? Any kind of ability? I asked. That's right. Even if it's beyond human capability? Exactly. I see. After hearing her answer, I fell into deep thought. Whether it's teleportation, conjuring things from thin air, freezing time, turning stones into gold, superhuman strength, flying, or breathing underwater, if you can imagine it, I can make it happen. Seeing me deep in thought, she added. Then I want luck. After a long silence, I raised my head and answered. Luck? She tilted her head, puzzled. Yeah. Luck. You get whatever you want, and everything you pray for comes true, absolute luck. I explained slowly, still thinking. Hey, that's so sneaky. Isn't that like getting everything at once? She was stunned for a moment, then pouted. I can't believe you'd wish for something like that. It's cheating. You said any ability is acceptable. Ugh, you idiot, she said angrily. Technically, it's not impossible. Fine, it's settled. But you're not allowed to regret it. You're the one who better not regret it. Her eyes suddenly sparkled, as if her trap had succeeded. She took a step back, looked up at me, and said, You're so naive. Abilities don't come from nowhere. The more you want, the more you'll have to give up. That world has a unique balance system, restrictions and vows. Are you ready to pay the price? What's the price? I asked. Let me help you fine-tune this ability. She ignored my question and continued. Nen ability generation, start. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and I almost fell. In the once empty room, several transparent screens and mechanical devices appeared out of thin air. A mechanical female voice rang out emotionlessly. I barely steadied myself and focused on the voice. The Nen ability generation system is starting. Startup successful. Beginning data analysis. Analysis complete. Generating results. Ability name, God's listening. User, Amber. Nen category, specialist. Ability effect, any wish made in the user's heart can come true. Restrictions. Wishes must exist only within this world and cannot involve other worlds. Every wish must begin with the phrase I wish, spoken aloud, or in thought. Each wish activates a 12-sided die that determines the wish's level and corresponding cost. The levels range from 1 to 12. Based on the result, the user will fall into a coma. Level 1 to 11, durations are 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 6 hours, 24 hours, 3 days, 30 days, 3 months, 1 year, 3 years, and 10 years respectively. Level 12, immediate death. A 12-sided die? So I fall into a coma just for making a wish? I frowned and looked at the girl claiming to be God, who stood there nodding thoughtfully. So that's the price. It really fits the rule of balance. What a fascinating ability. She seemed not to hear me and muttered to herself. After a moment, she looked up again. Eh? What did you say just now? But she didn't wait for my answer. Her eyes gleamed with excitement as she continued, Let me explain how to use the ability basically. Your wish must involve only this world, so things like sending me back to my original world or bring someone from the original world here or contact someone in the original world won't work. Second, you have to say I wish like a spell when activating it. Third, and this is the highlight. You'll pass out as soon as you use the ability. Scary, right? But don't worry, the die is fairly user-friendly. Most normal wishes roll between 1 and 6, so you won't be out for too long. Only if the wish is really costly will it roll higher. As for rolling a 12, well, that means wishing for someone's death. Even world destruction could be granted for a 12, but death is the minimum trigger. Got it? I crossed my arms, thinking about everything I'd just learned. Do the restrictions and vows have to be that strict? It's not that bad. The chance of a normal person mastering this power is nearly zero. She turned her back and took a few small steps forward. As she walked, white stairs appeared under her feet. The white room began to disintegrate, transforming into a cascade of colorful glass fragments. The ground became an endless, transparent lake, like a jagged crystal refracting sunlight. Mountains and jungles shimmered beneath the surface. I hurried up the stairs after her. As I caught up, the little girl said, "Do you have any questions about Nen you want to ask me?" "A lot," I said. "Okay, then don't ask." She smiled. "I don't want to answer them all. God isn't an encyclopedia. Just experience it for yourself. I'll tell you a few last things, and then you'll be ready for your new life." The stairs stretched upward like an endless ribbon. A cool breeze brushed my face. The girl who called herself God walked ahead with her hands behind her back, her long black hair flowing gently. The scent in the air, the feel of the wind, the kaleidoscope of colors, it all felt so real it seemed unreal. I couldn't help but doubt whether this was truly a dream. And if it was, why hadn't I woken up yet? "It's not a dream." The girl ahead of me suddenly spoke. "I told you from the start. Come on. Do I look like a liar? Besides, I'm about to toss you into that world. You'd better react. The place you land is random, so it depends on your luck. Also, your body will be replaced. The system will generate a new appearance for you. Age, gender, height, looks, all of it might change. So be mentally prepared. But don't worry, you won't turn into anything weird. The system has good aesthetics." "Change bodies? Is that even possible?" I asked in shock. "Of course. I'm God. What can't I do?" "But why change bodies?" "Because it's fun." She suddenly stopped walking, turned, and looked down at me. Backlit, her slender white arms stretched toward me. She tilted her head and smiled. "Goodbye, Amber." Then she pushed me down the stairs. Chapter 2. My name is Amber, Lynn Amber, a name that makes people feel almost doomed just by hearing it. A typical modern high school girl, with average grades, average looks, no particular hobbies, and only decent Chinese skills, but mediocre in everything else. I've never been in a relationship, nor do I have any fantasies about one. I live in an ordinary family of 5. In addition to my parents and me, the 2 extra members are our cats, Inky and Ash. The reason I was given this name is because my father was fanatically obsessed with the French composer Charles-Camille Saint-Saëns and decided to name me after his idol. However, when registering my birth, the clerk at the counter misheard the name and wrote Saint-Saëns as Sheng Sang. So, with a 180-degree twist, my name went from that of an artist to an ominous-sounding phrase meaning short-lived. I guess even a ginseng fruit wouldn't be bold enough to name itself something so grim. But my parents never believed in such superstitions. Not only did they refuse to change my name, they often joked about it. When I was younger, I sometimes feared I'd end up like the protagonist in the tale of the mulberry tree dream, dying unjustly because of my unlucky name. But my parents' incredible indifference eventually comforted me. As I got older and my understanding matured, I began to think, maybe it wasn't the mulberry tree that caused the person's death in the story, but rather that his time had simply come. There's no need to worry so much, after all, we're all born headed for death. At some point, I had a moment of clarity, and the burden of this name I had carried for years was finally lifted. After figuring it out, I began to think this name was actually kind of nice. When I woke up, I was in a forest. Half of my body was submerged in a shallow, clear river, and my upper body was lying on a low, flat rock on the shore like a mermaid. I sat up in a daze. My head was spinning, and even before my vision cleared, the overwhelming sense of dissonance coming from every part of my body caught my attention. I climbed out of the water with difficulty and collapsed on the muddy shore, drenched. My school uniform, now soaked through, clung heavily to me. I trudged barefoot onto the grass beyond the river's reach. The soft mud oozed between my toes, sticking stubbornly to my skin. I stood there for a moment, then grabbed a handful of my hair, examined my hands, tugged at my clothes, kicked my legs, and finally pressed my chubby cheeks with both hands and pinched them hard. It hurts. I had hoped that a good pinch would wake me up, but the sharp pain made me cry out. My nose tingled and tears welled up. This sensation, this eye level, this weird feeling of misfit. Did I turn into a child? I shook my head to clear my thoughts and looked down carefully. Skinny limbs, a small frame, a flat chest, pale skin stretched over bones. As my mind cleared, the sudden change in physique brought intense discomfort. Every movement felt foreign. I couldn't control my body and stumbled awkwardly. But aside from that, there seemed to be nothing else wrong. I wasn't injured, and it didn't seem like I'd been in the water too long. Judging by my skin, I'd probably been unconscious for no more than 10 minutes. Ding, the system will now report your body's condition. Just as I was wondering what was going on, the mechanical voice I'd heard in the white room echoed again. Match target, Lynn Amber. Matching mode, random. Build condition, good. Data details, name, birth date. Gender, female. Age, 10 years old. Height, 135 centimeters. Weight, 26 kilograms. The above is the data generated for the body. Report complete. Wishing you a pleasant usage. I frowned as I listened to the system announcement in disbelief. 10 years old? I'm an adult, and you put me in a 10-year-old's body. And the body was randomly generated by the system? That's way too arbitrary. Tossing a little girl into a world she knows nothing about, how is that not bullying? What can such a small body even do? Stand on the street and recite Tang poems to survive? I grumbled with tears in my eyes and suddenly pictured myself reciting poems on the street. I didn't know whether the Tang dynasty even existed in this world, or whether child labor was illegal here. But the real question was, what kind of world is this? Is it a dream? How do I wake up? My body had changed, but my clothes hadn't. The drastic difference in body size made the school uniform hang off me like a sack. The skirt had already fallen off, but the long sailor top still managed to cover everything important, not that there was much to cover at this stage of development. I sat down, hugged my knees, and stared blankly. I wanted to stop thinking, but my brain wouldn't cooperate. Maybe if I just waited here, I'd wake up when my alarm rang tomorrow morning. Worst case, Mom would come wake me. Then I wouldn't have to worry about any of this bizarre stuff. I could go back to my ordinary life. But what if this isn't a dream? If this world is real, if I really did travel to another world, and this is my new body. And I really have a new ability. Ability? I shuddered as I recalled the previous setting, the Nen ability that could make any wish come true, God's listening. At the thought of it, I perked up, took a deep breath, and was about to speak, only to swallow my words. Wait. That girl said the ability comes with a side effect, coma. I have to be careful using it. First, I can't wish to wake up or go back to my original world. Also, I don't know how long the coma lasts for different kinds of wishes. If I use it recklessly, I might pass out right here in the forest and never wake up. I don't even know if there are wild animals or monsters nearby. If I get attacked while unconscious, I could die. I gulped and tried to recall what the girl said about coma durations. I remembered, 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour. Damn, I couldn't remember everything. Frustrated, I pulled at my hair and buried my face in my knees. When I turned my head slightly, I spotted a small silver shoulder bag lying nearby. This must be my starting gear. Looks like God didn't abandon me after all. I leapt up and hurried over. Who wouldn't grab a prop in a place like this? The bag was just an ordinary messenger bag. Inside were 2 cards and a stack of cash. I pulled out the cards. Though the text was unfamiliar, the design of one card made its function obvious. Most likely an ID card. The girl in the ID photo looked thin, with traces of baby fat on her round face. Short black hair fell to her neck, and her expression was distant. Is this me? I hesitated, then touched my own face and hair, even pulling on it to confirm the color. It seemed I was indeed the person in the ID photo. So this is what I look like. I studied the picture with my chin in hand and sighed. At least the system did a decent job, I didn't turn into some strange creature. I didn't know what the other card was for, but the presence of cash and ID suggested that this world had some level of civilization and laws. That was a relief. I put everything back in the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and decided not to give up. I had to figure out how this world worked. Which brought me back to the question I'd been stuck on, how to use that ability. I thought hard and remembered 7 time durations, with the first 3 being clearer than the others, plus the 12th roll. That made 8 in total. The girl had said most normal wishes would fall within levels 1 to 6. Of those, I could recall 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Levels 5 and 6 caused 24 hours and 3 days of coma, respectively. Based on intuition, normal wishes likely included material ones, since they're relatively easy to fulfill. But to be safe, I needed to find a secure place first. After circling the riverbank a few times, I found a hidden tree hollow. My small size helped me crawl in easily. I had to stay hidden. If I fell into a coma after making a wish and was left exposed, I'd be animal food. Thinking this, I considered what my first wish should be. In fact, I already knew. But out of nerves, or maybe excitement, I ran through a few other ideas before settling on the original. My heart pounded like a rabbit in a snare. I took a deep breath, and in a strange, childish voice, I whispered, "I pray. I want a watch that is accurate and useful." Chapter 3. I pray. I want an accurate and usable watch. After carefully saying the words, I made the wish. Just as I finished speaking, a flash of light appeared before me, and a small metal die fell to the ground. After spinning a few times, it stopped on the number 1. Wish takes effect, point 1, restriction activated. The system's voice rang out again. Before I could react, everything went dark, I had passed out. A moment later, I suddenly woke up. The die had disappeared. Judging by the situation, I hadn't been unconscious for long. I instinctively reached up to rub my eyes, but immediately noticed something heavy in my hand. I opened my clenched palm and found a silver watch ticking away. It actually worked. Gripping the watch tightly, I celebrated silently. But then I paused. If this were a dream, wouldn't anything be possible? After taking a few deep breaths to calm down, I examined the watch closely. To my surprise, it was structured almost exactly like a real-world watch, complete with Arabic numerals. Based on the 12 numbers on the dial, it seemed that this world also followed a 24-hour time system, just like my original world. The current time appeared to be in the afternoon, which meant the basic structure of time here wasn't much different from Earth. My thoughts became clearer, and my mood began to lift. The next step was to continue testing my ability. After careful consideration, I decided to make a slightly more complex wish that included 2 requirements, basic material needs plus a convenience component. It was a little risky, but if it worked, I could aim next to get out of this forest. Even after adjusting the watch strap to its tightest setting, it was still a bit loose on my wrist, but not enough to fall off. I checked the time again, watched the second hand sweep forward, and said, "I pray. I hope my body will be clean and I will be given a new set of suitable clothes." I held my breath, waiting for the die to appear. But after 10 seconds, nothing happened. Only when the second hand had made a full revolution and returned to its original position did I exhale in relief. It seemed that making 2 wishes at once was not allowed. After a moment of silent reflection, I tried again. "I pray that my body will become clean." Now that the wish had moved beyond the purely material, I was slightly worried about how many points it would cost. But my concern was unfounded. The 12-sided die once again landed on 1. When I woke up, I checked the time. Exactly 3 minutes had passed, no more, no less. To my surprise, not only was my body cleaned, but it triggered a subtle chain effect. My clothes were also cleaned. A large green leaf had appeared beneath me, seemingly to prevent direct contact with the ground and ensure the cleaning wish took full effect. This was an amazing discovery. The system didn't rigidly interpret my words, it adapted them to fulfill my true intent. That meant even if I didn't phrase a wish perfectly, the system would still try to interpret what I really meant. Alright. Next. "I pray, I want a new suit that fits me." The die appeared again, showing 1 as it landed. I fell into another short coma. These comas didn't seem to put any physical strain on my body, and I was starting to grasp the nuances of the restrictions and vows. Still, there were many parts of this ability I hadn't figured out yet. It was too dangerous to keep testing it here in the wild. I had to find a safe place soon. I climbed out of the tree hollow and changed into the new outfit. It was exactly the same design as what I'd been wearing, only resized, a smaller version of a standard JK uniform. I clutched the strap of my crossbody bag and stood silently, looking ahead. "I pray, send me to the city closest to this forest." Wish takes effect. Point 1, restriction activated. As I heard the system's voice for the 4th time that day, a flash of white light enveloped me. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting on a bench in a city park. Chapter 4. After waking up suddenly, I found myself leaning on a bench next to a fountain in a park. Cars and pedestrians passed by, and across the street, rows of shops with glass doors stood open. Everything seemed so ordinary. Occasionally, passers-by would glance at me with mild curiosity, but their attention never lingered. The trees lining the road rustled gently in the breeze, sunlight poured down warmly, and an orange cat lay asleep on a table in front of one of the shops. The peaceful scene warmed my eyes. What? This is just an ordinary world. It's not as scary as I imagined, I thought to myself. Suddenly, I remembered I had some cash and felt hungry, so I decided to eat and try to gather information at the same time. With that in mind, I walked directly to the shop where the orange cat slept, drawn by the large pancake illustration on the sign. Even if you can't read, pictures always help. I wasn't sure how much cash I had, but if the system gave it to me, it should at least be enough to buy a meal. If not, I could always rely on my ability to fix the situation. The orange cat lazily opened one eye at me, stretched its paws, then turned over and continued sleeping. When I stepped into the shop, the aroma of food hit me full force. The restaurant owner, spotting me, quickly came over with a warm smile. "Welcome, welcome. What would you like to order, young lady?" The speaker was a slightly chubby man. Although plump, he didn't come across as greasy. Instead, he looked seasoned and kind. His large, calloused hands were clasped in front of his chest. I understood his words perfectly, and conversation seemed easy. But something felt off. A subtle dissonance in the way he spoke made me hesitate. I replied hesitantly, "Hello." Maybe it was because this was the first time I'd spoken to someone since arriving in this world, but the moment I opened my mouth, I noticed it. Even though there was no language barrier, I could understand and speak fluently. This wasn't my native tongue. I was shocked. I'd never learned the language of this world, yet I was using it as if it were my mother tongue. I had been muttering to myself for so long and never even noticed. The language felt so familiar, so ingrained, that it seemed to have overwritten Chinese in my mind. I shivered involuntarily. If they could overwrite someone's language center so seamlessly, tampering with memory would be a piece of cake. The thought made my blood run cold, and I forced myself not to think further. "Hey! Little girl! Hey!" A voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I saw a large hand waving in front of my face. "You've been spacing out since you walked in. Are you feeling okay? Do you need help?" The uncle looked at me with concern. I quickly shook my head. "Ah. I'm fine. Sorry, could I get a menu?" The man smiled warmly. Of course. I was the only customer in the small shop. I took a seat, and the owner quickly returned with a menu. Everything went smoothly, until I actually looked at it. Why aren't there any pictures? I stared blankly for 3 seconds at the unfamiliar text and solid dots scattered across the page, then silently closed the menu and glanced at the owner, embarrassed. Sorry, I forgot, I can't read. What's your signature dish?" I asked sheepishly. Eventually, I managed to bluff my way through, pretending to be a lost little girl who had gotten separated from her parents. With the uncle's kind help, I figured out what the 3 items I had with me were. The first was indeed an ID card. I'd already compared it to my reflection earlier, it matched my face exactly. The information showed my name was Amber, born July 28, 1984. That meant the current year in this world was 1994. My place of birth was a city called Yorknew, which wasn't where I was now. With the uncle's help, I also counted my cash, about 20,000 jenny. The currency's value differed from what I was used to, but I could tell 20,000 wasn't much. The last item was a bank card. The uncle kindly tried to swipe it for me, but it had no money in it. Still, it was indeed registered under my name. After gathering this basic information, the uncle offered to call the police to help me find my family. I made up a lame excuse, saying I remembered how to get back to my hotel, thanked him, and bolted. I'm not good at lying, and I wouldn't know how to explain where I truly came from, better to flee while I could. I ran for quite a distance, clutching my bag strap and panting until I recovered. Luckily, the weather wasn't hot, so the exertion didn't overwhelm me. Ahead of me stood a large store. I couldn't read the sign, but through the glass doors, I saw shelves stocked with daily necessities, likely a department store. I didn't know where to go next, so I went inside. After all, this counted as gathering intel too. The store was busy, just like the streets. Most people dressed normally, maybe a little plainer than in my original world. Occasionally, someone wore an unusual outfit, but for some reason, it didn't feel out of place. Maybe because this is a different world. I wandered between shelves. Snacks, candy, tissues, plates, all organized neatly. Everything looked ordinary, except the snack packaging, which was unfamiliar. But I could still guess what they were. It seemed that even in a different world, many things remained the same. Maybe surviving here wouldn't be so hard. Lost in thought, I walked past a mirror, and froze. I really hadn't adapted to this new body yet. Every time I saw it, I was momentarily stunned. Until now, I'd only caught glimpses of myself in reflective surfaces. Now, with a proper mirror, I could examine myself more closely. I used to be a gentle, long-haired older sister. Now, after traveling to this world, I'd become a cold-looking girl with short hair. My eyes were large, but my expression gave off a quiet, aloof aura that discouraged strangers from approaching. I studied myself, turning my face left and right. My small, underdeveloped body looked fragile, like it could snap in the wind. At least I wasn't so skinny I looked like a walking chopstick. Still, I sighed again about my height. I'd lost nearly 30 centimeters of height. My field of view had shrunk dramatically. I couldn't even reach the drinks on the third shelf. While grumbling internally, I tiptoed up and reached for a bottle of water that resembled a familiar brand from my old world. I wasn't particularly thirsty, but curiosity drove me. Unfortunately, my height failed me again. "Is this what you want?" a voice said beside me. It was clear, with a touch of childishness, obviously a child. A hand reached from behind and plucked the bottle easily. "For you," the voice continued. I turned and saw a boy, much taller than me, standing before me. He had golden hair that fell messily around his face and warm brown eyes that sparkled as he smiled. He wore a blue robe with an exotic cut. He was stunning. Next to him stood another boy in a brown robe. He was younger and smiled at me just as gently. "Ah. Thank you." I blinked, then quickly accepted the water and bowed my thanks. "You're welcome. Just a small favor," the blond boy said, turning to hold the other boy's hand. "Let's go, Piero." "Children won't grow tall if they don't eat properly," said Piero seriously, smiling as he waved goodbye. The two walked off. I'm an adult, but two kids just called me a child. I stared at their backs, dumbfounded. They carried loads of daily supplies, bags full of basics. Both were strikingly attractive. Though their hair colors were different, their features suggested they were likely siblings. Still holding the water, I wandered aimlessly. Buying stuff wasn't the problem, figuring out how to survive was. The first issue was where to sleep tonight. I might have enough cash for a hotel, but would they let a minor check in without a guardian? Also, I didn't have much money. This wasn't sustainable. I could always make a wish, but what would I wish for? A house? That felt too risky. A house costs far more than a watch or clothes. And because I couldn't wish for multiple things at once, I wouldn't be able to safely occupy the house the moment I got it. If the wish put me in a coma for hours, I'd be helpless, unconscious outside. I shook my head. Not yet. There were too many unknowns. I couldn't afford to gamble. In terms of money, I could solve small amounts with my ability. But making wishes constantly wasn't a long-term strategy. I needed steady income or savings. Otherwise, even basic living expenses wouldn't be guaranteed. Would I really have to recite 300 tang poems on the street? I thought, teary-eyed. To make money, the safest way would be to get a job. I'd need to think carefully about what I could do. And find a place willing to overlook my apparent age. Just then, a commotion snapped me back to reality. "Hey, brat, this outfit's limited edition, got it? If you don't pay me today, don't even think about leaving. This is all the money we have. It's everything we've saved. Can we give you all of it? You trying to joke with me? You think this tiny bit of change is enough?" What a classic bully line, I muttered internally. A crowd gathered, and I squeezed forward easily thanks to my small size. To my surprise, the kids in trouble were the same ones who just helped me. From the murmurs around me, I pieced it together. The man had deliberately bumped into Piero, causing his ice cream to spill on the guy's clothes. A glass jar filled with coins had been dumped out. The man sneered, "All your savings? This is just one Jenny." Piero stood silently, head lowered. His earlier smile was gone. Though he smiled weakly, he looked on the verge of tears. What struck me most were his dark eyes, blank and unfocused, lacking any light. Those eyes looked like they belonged to someone who had already given up. Had they looked like that earlier too? I hadn't noticed, he'd been smiling so brightly then. Fragments of past memories surfaced. My throat tightened, and my heart pounded uncontrollably. Laughter from the bully pierced through the noise, syncing with my racing pulse. I didn't know why, but I couldn't contain the rising emotion. My fists clenched, slick with cold sweat. My back tingled. Was it because they had helped me, even just a little? Or because I couldn't stand this kind of injustice? Did I want to play hero? Silver coins glinted on the ground. Pierrot murmured sorry over and over, his eyes hollow. People jeered. Though Pierrot had bumped into the man, most were whispering, he clearly did it on purpose, and this guy's just harassing them. But my head was swimming. I couldn't think. It felt like I'd lived through something like this before, coins scattered on the floor, a child running away crying, those hopeless eyes. If only I'd had courage and strength back then, maybe that awful ending wouldn't have happened. But now, it's different. Now I can get anything I want. I pray. I exhaled slowly. The words slipped from my lips almost unconsciously. I stared at the three men. They didn't notice me. They continued their tantrum. I felt detached, like I wasn't in control of my own body anymore. But it didn't matter. Sin should be punished. As I parted my lips to complete the wish, a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. I flinched. Before I could turn around, a man leaned in and whispered in my ear. "You'd better not meddle in other people's business besides, your murderous aura is showing." Chapter 5. The warm breath grazed the side of my face as a soft voice whispered into my ear. The hand on my shoulder was firm, showing no signs of letting go. The man behind me seemed amused, and his deliberately theatrical tone sent a chill down my spine. Beyond surprise, I was most unsettled by the unknown emotion behind his words. Humans instinctively fear what they cannot understand. I turned defensively, quickly shrugging off his grip. My movements were subtle enough that the surrounding crowd, still focused on the scene at the center, didn't notice. The sudden shock jolted me back to clarity, as if awakening from a nightmare. My heart pounded in my chest like it had burst from a tightly sealed box. My breathing turned shallow. I stared at the man and instinctively took 2 steps back. He was a tall man with unruly red hair. "There are too many people here. Let's talk outside. Don't worry, those 2 kids will be just fine." He squinted, smiling cheerfully as he spoke. Without waiting for my response, he turned and walked out of the crowd. "Hey! You!" I hesitated, glanced back at the 2 children, but still turned to follow him. "How do you know those 2 children are okay?" I asked cautiously after forcing my way out of the crowd. "That blonde kid is strong. He can handle a few thugs easily. If he's holding back, it's for a reason. Now, are you a Nen user?" The way he dragged out the last word, the sudden frivolous shift in his tone, the predator-like glint in his eyes, the crooked smile that wasn't really a smile, all of it overwhelmed me with an inexplicable sense of dread. I instinctively took a few more steps back. He stood well over 1.9 meters tall. The height gap forced me to tilt my head just to see his chin. His messy red hair fell across his forehead, partially covering his sharp, dangerous eyes. "A person with psychic abilities?" I asked. "You mean someone who can use strange powers?" "Strange powers? I suppose you could call it that." He rubbed his chin, amused. "Then I guess I am." "Interesting. I clearly sensed a strong aura from you earlier, but now it's completely gone. And you seem totally unaware. Could it be your Nen awakened without you realizing it?" He seemed to be talking to both me and himself, muttering things I couldn't fully grasp. Just as I was about to reply, he suddenly asked, "What's your name?" The question caught me off guard. After a pause, I answered, "My name is Amber." "Amber, what a lovely name. You're still just a little kid, but you've got this prematurely mature air about you. Like an unripe apple, just starting to change color. Makes me look forward to the day it ripens and falls to the ground. Just imagining it makes me excited. I bet you'll be delicious." Goosebumps exploded across my skin. I shuddered violently and instinctively backed away, rubbing my arms. This is bad. Is this guy a pervert? A freak? Am I seriously this unlucky to run into someone like him right from the start? Seeing that I was about to bolt, he instantly appeared in front of me, gripping my shoulders tightly with both hands. He leaned closer, speaking in the same eerie tone. Don't run away, I won't hurt you. I'm just very interested in you. Cold sweat trickled down my spine. I tried to remain calm. What do you want? I already told you, I won't hurt you. Just answer my questions and everything will be fine, he said, smiling. Those two kids, you know them, right? Locals, yeah? If you run, I'll kill them. A freezing chill raced up my back. Sweat slid down my temples. The dread was almost physical, like malice had taken form and was wrapping itself around me. He had already seen through my thoughts of escape. Even if I could get away now, I couldn't protect the boys forever. One day, they'd return to their hometown, and if they crossed paths with him again. No. I couldn't risk dragging innocent people into this. This is bad, very bad. He's definitely a pervert, and worse, he's deadly serious about killing those kids. That must mean this world's legal system isn't as rigid as the one I came from. In my old world, people couldn't just kill over trivial things. But looking around at the city's peaceful, orderly life, it was clear this wasn't some lawless wasteland either. Only one conclusion made sense: this is a world where laws exist, but aren't strictly enforced for everyone. A select group of high-level players live above the law. They can do as they please, within certain limits. Even God said this world has a complex system of checks and balances. Still, if murder isn't tightly regulated, or if enforcement is weak, then serial killers or psychopaths could easily thrive among those high-level players. And this guy behind me is likely one of them. I stood frozen, processing everything, bracing for his next move. Okay, next question, what's your ability? It's called God's Listening. It lets me make wishes. Wishes? Yes. In theory, any wish can come true. Oh, that's incredible. I didn't expect such an interesting ability from such a small child. Who taught you Nen? I'm self-taught, I replied coldly. Fascinating. I definitely wasn't imagining it, the aura I sensed from you earlier was real. Ah, this is thrilling. So much potential. Even this unripe fruit is as enticing as a ripe one. Damn, I'm getting excited. This guy is absolutely a creep. My skin crawled. I wanted to run, but I knew better. I gritted my teeth, took deep breaths, and forced myself to stay calm. He wasn't finished. Do you know the basics of Nen? What basics? I asked. I'm talking about the four major principles: Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu. They're the foundation of all Nen techniques. I've never heard of them. Really? So you're projecting that much aura without even learning the basics. You're a natural. What are those techniques for? Are they useful? Very. But don't worry, I'll teach you everything. Bit by bit his voice trembled with poorly disguised glee. So, for the next few days, you'll be staying with me. Chapter 6. Are you a pervert? After hearing him say together, my face turned red, and I finally couldn't hold back and shouted. Everyone nearby was startled, but we were already far from the center of the crowd. Only a few passers-by were in the area, and they glanced at us awkwardly before quickly moving on. But I'm a little girl. A little girl. I'm only 10 years old. Isn't it illegal to date a child? Even if it isn't, don't you feel guilty? I exclaimed in frustration. But I have no intention of dating you. He was clearly stunned by my outburst, but once I finished ranting, he calmly replied, Sorry, I'm not interested in brainless little girls. I'm just curious about your abilities. So technically, this isn't about romance, it's a master-disciple relationship. Yo, when I said together, I meant we'd be moving together for now. I stood there, frozen in place like I'd been struck by lightning. Ah! Dear heavens, if a hole opened beneath me right now, I'd gladly crawl into it with my tiny body. If embarrassment were a competition, I'd win a top 10 finish this year. Children speak without filters. I'm still a child. These are just the foolish ramblings of an inexperienced kid. Don't take them seriously. By the way, you don't have the right to refuse, he added, brushing off my blunder with ease. The grip on my shoulder finally loosened. I stepped forward a few paces to put distance between us. He didn't stop me, he just watched me, smiling. Why do you want to take me as your disciple? I asked seriously, trying to mask my earlier embarrassment. To make you stronger, little apple. So that one day, when you're ripe, you can fight me. If you refuse or slack off, I'll kill you. No matter where you run, I'll hunt you down and kill you. Those golden eyes looked down at me, the ever-present strange smile masking whatever true emotions hid behind it. I could feel the oppressive weight of his killing intent again and furrowed my brow, staring him down. Don't call me Little Apple. That's disgusting. I already told you my name is Amber. Amber? From now on, I'll just call you Little Apple. Stop giving people disgusting nicknames. And what the hell is that even based on? You can't just randomly dissect a name into unrelated words, I snapped. He chuckled softly. It doesn't matter. Anyway, there's no point sticking around here. Let's go. Wait, where are we going? Special training, of course. What, you planning to refuse? I instinctively looked back toward where we had come from. The crowd had mostly dispersed. I could just make out the two kids from earlier, safe and gone. It seemed, just like he said, nothing had happened. Turning back, I let out a long sigh and replied helplessly, even though it's all very sudden. How could I dare refuse, master? Your eyes don't reflect anything close to dare. I blinked, confused. Hey, do you really think I'd run off halfway? Sure, being made someone's disciple out of nowhere is ridiculous, but if I were planning to escape, wouldn't it be smarter to act compliant? Earn your trust, then bolt. Should I also kowtow 3 times to prove my sincerity? I said sarcastically. No, that's not what I meant. Forget I said anything. I don't like forcing people, so I hope we can get along from now on. As long as you listen, I won't hurt you. What a twisted thing to say. You claim you don't like forcing people, yet if I disobey you, you plan to kill me. How warped is your logic? I glared at him. Then, what should I call you, uninvited master? He smiled. Ciso, my name is Hisaka Moro. Chapter 7. At my strong request, after confirming the 2 children were safe, I left the mall with Hisaka. But just as we passed the cashier, we were stopped. Little boy, you can't leave, said the girl behind the counter with a polite smile. You haven't paid for that bottle of water in your hand. Ah. I completely forgot. Okay. I answered quickly and lowered my head to reach into my bag. Just as my hand touched the zipper, I had a better idea. I didn't unzip anything. Instead, I looked up and locked eyes with Hisaka. Master, I called. Huh? He seemed surprised that I'd suddenly addressed him like that. He blinked and asked, what is it? Pay for me, I said flatly. You should have money on you. As a master, are you really so stingy you can't even buy a bottle of water for your apprentice? Just now you said we should get along harmoniously. Turns out all men are pigs. I'm just a helpless little girl, working so hard, living a miserable life with you, and you can't even buy your poor, thirsty disciple a drink. Woo woo. I faked a sob. The cashier shot Hisaka a scornful look. Hisaka looked like he had just swallowed a lemon. He was silent for 3 seconds before speaking. How much is the water? That'll be 300 jenny. Will you be paying with cash or card? The cashier asked sweetly. Swipe the card. After we left the mall, I twisted off the cap and took a sip. It tasted like regular water. Hisaka, standing beside me, said coldly, "You're a child, but you sure know how to avoid suffering. You were ready to pay, then suddenly made me do it. What can I say? I'm just a kid. No inheritance, no income. I figured master wouldn't care about the cost of one drink. And since you'll be handling my food, shelter, and travel from now on, it's only fair." I answered slowly. Humph. He snorted but didn't argue. Instead, he changed the subject. How fast can you run? Huh? I blinked. After thinking for a moment, I replied, I think I can run 800 meters in 5 minutes. That was a random estimate based on how far I'd just run. This body's stamina really isn't great. So weak, Hisaka deadpanned. What? I'm still a kid. Kid, okay? What do you expect, 800 miles per hour? At that pace, we won't make the station before dark, he said. So, I'm taking you now. Be prepared. Prepared for what? Before I could finish, he grabbed me by the waist, tucked me under his arm, and before I could react, we were off, flying through the streets at a terrifying speed. The wind roared in my ears, loud enough to drown out my heartbeat. I couldn't open my eyes. His arm locked around my waist like a steel band, so at least I didn't fear falling. But what's with this humiliating pose? Shouldn't a girl get carried princess style? Worst case, at least a piggyback. This pose makes it look like he's lugging a sack of rice. And it hurts. My ribs are going to snap. I swear, I'm going to kill this guy. I cursed him viciously in my heart, but thankfully we arrived before long. Hisaka slowed down, steadied his steps, and set me down. We're here. I was seeing stars. Once on the ground, my legs buckled, and I nearly collapsed. Hisaka, looking unimpressed, grabbed me by the collar to keep me upright. You're so weak. If not for your interesting ability, I'd have killed you already. I don't care for the weak. So I should thank you? I muttered, regaining balance and brushing off his hand. Sure. By the way, if your training doesn't yield results, or progress is slow, I'll still kill you. What counts as poor results? I asked. Simple. Just reach half my level. Wait. What? I stared at him. Half? You mean your freakish speed? Half? Are you trying to kill me? Is this just an excuse? Overconfidence can get you killed. But sometimes, it's the key to success. It's up to you, he said, smiling. Stop spouting motivational quotes. You do want to kill me, don't you? Eventually, after a noisy ticket purchase, we boarded a green train. Its vintage leather seats gave off an old-world charm. These kinds of trains were rare in modern times. There were 2 benches facing each other, separated by a small wooden table beneath the window. Hisaka and I sat across from one another. We were to ride this train for a full day to reach a nearby city, then transfer to an airship. I wasn't sure what exactly that was, but I assumed it was similar to a plane. As I scanned the train interior curiously, Hisaka, resting his chin on his hand, suddenly spoke. You're not afraid at all. Huh? Are you joking? Of course I'm scared. You say you want me as your disciple, but who knows what you're actually thinking? What if you plan to sell my organs, or you're a serial killer, or you sell kids to creepy old men as brides? Ugh, the thought gives me chills. I hugged myself for emphasis. But, he smiled, lips curving into a sly arc. He slowly blinked, then opened his half-lidded eyes and looked at me with amusement. Your eyes show no fear. People's eyes never lie. His narrow eyes always seemed half shut, red hair falling in loose curls across his forehead. Anyone who had ever looked into them would know, this was a man to fear. You never knew what emotions hid behind that smile, or what kind of bloodthirst lurked beneath his calm. He kept watching me. Then, with a flick of his hand, a playing card appeared. He flipped it, and one card became several. Then those split again, into a full fan of cards. Like a magician, he reversed the process, until one card remained, the Joker. He tossed it onto the table between us. You don't even know my true intentions, but still followed me. The smart choice would have been to run. But you didn't, because you didn't want those two kids to get hurt. People love dragging others into things for trivial reasons, yet they act all noble in life and death moments. It's just an excuse to clear their conscience. And you, despite fearing the unknown, don't actually care what happens to you, do you? Don't care? Because being in this world still doesn't feel real. Because I don't know if this is a dream. Because I have a wish ability that can save me. Because what? I thought of a story from the Three Kingdoms. Chi once dreamed of a mulberry tree growing from his well. When he asked for a divination, he was told the word mulberry had 48 strokes, and that he would die at age 48. He did. Life and death. These thoughts haunted me for years. But is it really so important? Somewhere along the way, I started questioning everything I once cared about. Just staying alive, maybe that's enough. Even if I don't understand this world, even if I'm afraid, I still want to live. But if I die one day, unable to stop it, maybe that's okay too. I picked up the Joker card and stared at it. After a pause, I finally spoke. Hisaka. He looked at me, waiting for the next line. You're so damn long-winded. Chapter 8. It was a journey that felt neither long nor short. To make our future cooperation easier, Hisaka and I exchanged some personal information. Hisaka Moro, 22 years old, apparently worked in a circus for a while. He calls himself a clown or a magician. His current occupation is unclear. He seems unemployed, yet he gives off the air of someone wealthy. Is he new money? Some rich heir? His hobbies include killing people and starting fights. His specialties, also killing people. And performing magic. Is it really okay to admit things like that so openly? Mine was simpler. I told him I was an orphan who wandered around performing 300 tang poems to support myself. Then Hisaka asked what the 300 tang poems were. I thought it over and told him it was a type of poetry unique to my homeland, but too difficult to translate into the common language, so I couldn't recite them for him. I didn't expect that simple excuse to raise so many red flags for him. He really is a pervert. And not like other people. You said that's the language of your country? So you're not from this town. Then how did an orphan like you end up here? My parents brought me here when I was very young for business, but they were killed. We had no savings, so I became an orphan. Oh, and how young were you? Maybe 4 or 5? And the 300 tang poems, those are actual poems, right? How did a 4 or 5-year-old memorize all of them? After your parents died, there shouldn't have been anyone left to teach you. Maybe I remembered wrong. I probably started learning them around 6 years old. Yeah, after I turned 6. I see, but if you can't translate them into common language, how do you make money reciting them? Wouldn't it just sound like gibberish to everyone else? You're so annoying. Shut up, you pervert. Don't bully a 10-year-old girl like this. Can't I have a little privacy? Anyway, the important thing is that I have no family or friends, and from now on I'm depending on you, my master, for support. Got it? I yelled, my eyes narrowing into inverted triangles. That lie was so full of holes it was hard not to poke through it. Still, even though your attitude is pretty irritating, I'm surprisingly not mad. But, he paused, resting his chin in his palm, eyes half-lidded but sharp. Don't get too comfortable if you really push me. You won't live long enough to finish this conversation. That terrifying aura surged again. A chill ran down my back, and I involuntarily shuddered. Everyone around us cast worried glances in my direction. I sat frozen, even my breathing slowed. Only when he finally retracted the aura did I dare to breathe again. No matter how many times it happens, you never stop being afraid. That overwhelming hostility, it feels real, like a weapon, like something that could kill just by brushing past you. My heart pounded wildly, but I managed to breathe slowly and meet his gaze. As always, he was smiling like nothing had happened. Seriously? Can't take a joke but still picks fights with a child. Humph. Whatever. I'm done talking to you. I laid down on the bench and pretended to sleep. I couldn't handle sitting face to face with him anymore. If I didn't detach, I was going to have a meltdown. Yeah, I got carried away and now I'm paying the price. The table blocked my view, so all I could see of him were his legs under the table. That was already better than looking at his face. Just as I was zoning out, something hit me. I screamed and sprang up from my seat. When I looked down at the culprit, it turned out to be a pillow. I have two. I'm giving you one. You're so fragile, you'll hurt your neck if you sleep without a pillow. That's surprisingly thoughtful, I said, lying back down, one hand over my chest to calm my racing heart. He's seriously unpredictable. One second he's ready to kill me, the next he's worried I'll get neck pain. He's tolerable for now, but if I ever say the wrong thing and hit a nerve, I'm dead. Guys like him, self-centered, unstable, would get beaten up in the real world. And why the hell can he just kill people whenever he wants? Is being a psycho a license for murder? Hisaka, you must not have any friends, I said, staring at his legs. Friends? Well, there's one guy I work with, but it's more of a business arrangement. Knew it. Who'd dare be friends with you? I muttered. Then I asked, what kind of person is your friend? Must be a psycho like you, huh? That's right, he's way more professional, too. Came from a family of assassins. Why do you like killing people, Hisaka? Because it's fun. Especially when it's someone strong. Fighting powerful opponents is the ultimate thrill. Then why are you allowed to do whatever you want? Why can you kill people just because you feel like it? Because I'm strong. That answer came with a chuckle and a voice full of twisted glee. Chapter 9. What are the rules of this world? As we disembarked the train, I licked my ice cream while Hisaka held my hand and led me forward. The scene felt oddly wholesome, like a father taking his daughter on an outing. Rules? People are split into two categories, those who can use Nen, and those who can't. With Nen, the human body can be boosted to military-level strength, or even beyond. Naturally, stronger users enjoy greater status and more resources. And that's basically it. Wow, Nen must be incredibly useful. How did you learn it, Hisaka? That's a secret. Really? Why the mystery? So how old were you when you learned Nen? 13 years old. That was ages ago, 9 years ago. Is Nen easy to learn? Who knows, it might be hard for some, but most people will never even encounter it in their lives. So how many people have Nen? There's no official count, but rough estimates say 3,000 or 4,000. Only 3,000 to 4,000? That's shockingly few. A single country has tens or hundreds of millions of people. No, I meant worldwide. Oh. Wait. Worldwide? So there are only a few thousand Nen users on the entire planet? And you and I are among them? My eyes nearly popped in surprise as melted ice cream dripped all over my skirt. When I came back to reality, my skirt was covered in white stains, like someone had cried on it. Ah! Ah, my clothes! My scream echoed through the station. To my surprise, an airship hovered beside the terminal. I felt relieved, as if I'd escaped the fate of being chased. I made it onto the airship with Hisaka. The airship resembled a solid hot air balloon, oval-shaped, smooth, and surprisingly spacious. There were no seatbelts, and you could walk around freely. It even had private sleeping quarters. By the next noon, I was well rested after barely sleeping on the train. The airship's amenities were far superior, it even had its own restaurant. At Hisaka's enthusiastic invitation, I dined on a delicious meal. Reclining with a pleasantly full belly, I suddenly remembered a crucial issue. My skirt was still stained. Staring at the dried mess, I felt like crying but knew I couldn't. I had no spare clothes to change into. My only option was to use my ability, but looking at Hisaka across from me, casually fiddling with knives, I didn't want to pass out in front of him for 3 minutes. But the skirt. That was too important. I needed to act fast. Just as I wrestled with options, Hisaka spoke. "What do you want?" His question snapped me from my thoughts. Hisaka had sensed my turmoil. I started to fib, but he spoke again. "Don't lie. You think I can't tell?" My excuse died on my lips. Instead, I admitted, "My skirt is dirty." "And?" I twirled a strand of hair, looked at him with wide, innocent eyes, and asked, "So, can I faint for 3 minutes?" After a thorough explanation and negotiation, Hisaka agreed to watch me use the ability, swearing he wouldn't do anything to me while unconscious and would keep me safe. Reluctantly, I agreed. I took a deep breath, pressed my palms together, closed my eyes, and whispered the spell, "I wish that my clothes become clean." Side note, the prayer gesture and closed eyes were just my own flair, I wanted it to feel like a real wish. And really, can't we make it less theatrical than starting with "I wish"? Every time I say it, I feel like a kid. Why not just "I hope" or "may"? The 12-sided die clattered to the floor, and darkness claimed me. My inner rant ended mid-thought. When I came to, Hisaka was still across from me, but he'd moved closer. He smiled. "Yep, you passed out." Not a single reaction during that time, and exactly 3 minutes, not a second more. "Wait, what did you do to me? Didn't you promise you wouldn't mess with me?" "Relax. I only tested whether you were really unconscious and if you'd respond to external stimuli." Hisaka nodded thoughtfully. "This ability is fascinating. It's highly coercive. As long as you pay the price, any wish can be fulfilled. But with the oath constraints, it's weak in one-on-one combat. Your power fits best as support." "Support? I didn't think about that," I replied, glancing at my clean skirt. "Think, hide in a safe spot during the fight, to avoid direct attack, while monitoring the battlefield. You need a 4-person team, 1 main fighter with tactical skill, 1 intelligence gatherer to relay info to you, 1 physically strong protector to assist in emergencies, and then you. With your wish ability, you can tip the entire battle with minimal cost. That's the ideal setup. If you can't get that, at least always have 1 dedicated partner to ensure you don't die alone during a coma." I stared in silence. Hisaka continued, "Your ability is unique, innate, right?" I tensed, but quickly replied, "Of course, lucky. Just lucky, haha." Don't worry about how you got it. What matters is that you've got it, and your nen basics are 0. Though you lied a bit, it's probably close enough. This guy's a freak, he figures everything out. I forced a laugh, perspiration cold on my back. "Why yes. As long as you're satisfied." Chapter 10. Ah. My necklace. My necklace is gone. Hisaka and I had just finished eating and were packing up when a scream erupted from the next table. A blonde woman was frantically patting her neck, her rich jewelry sparkling. She must be wealthy. This necklace was my most expensive piece. Worth 30 million. How could it just vanish? I'll never let the thief go. Her furious tone and twisted expression drew the attention of everyone nearby. Maybe it just fell off as you moved, I suggested, chewing gum that Hisaka had handed me. But wouldn't you be good at finding things? Want to help? But didn't you just tell me not to interfere in other people's business? Because your ability is so interesting, I want to watch it in action at least once more. I sighed. I've never tried finding lost items before. What if I pass out for too long? And you just ditch me? It'll be fine. I'll watch over you during the coma, won't let you die, even if it's for months. Don't worry. I don't want to risk trusting a pervert. I blew a bubble with my gum and popped it in his direction. Oh, come on, you think I'm unreliable? He teased. Well, a little, I admitted, imitating his tone. But, I'll be honest. I promise. I capitulated again. With a deep breath, I performed the ritual and whispered, I wish to find the blonde woman's missing necklace. The die rolled. And landed on one. Relief washed over me as I sank into unconsciousness. The coma already felt familiar. 3 minutes later, I blinked awake to find Hisaka examining something across from me. I squinted and saw. A compass? You're awake, he said, eyes still on the device. This appeared while you were unconscious. Looks like a compass, but it only has one needle, and it always points the same way. Is it for tracking the necklace? I asked, sitting up. Exactly, follow it. Hisaka stood, and I mirrored him. The compass pointed forward, I followed silently. Are you sure it's reliable? I asked after walking a bit. Got any other clues? No. I passed out right after wishing. Right, so since the oath triggered, it must tie into how the wish was granted. Then why not just wish the necklace appears in front of us? I asked. Because it's more fun this way, he replied with a smirk. I rolled my eyes. Following the compass, we reached the rest area after about 10 minutes. Hisaka stopped before a door. 502, I read aloud. Is this it? The needle's aimed here. Let's check. Let's knock first, I suggested. He let me lead. My heart pounded as I knocked. Hello? Anyone here? Silence. I knocked again thrice. On the verge of panic, I thought Hisaka might force it open, but then the door creaked open. I jumped back, startled. Inside stood a short-haired teenage girl, about 14 or 15, wearing black framed glasses. Her expression was flat, her eyes vacant. Who are you? She asked, tilting her head. Ah. Hi. Sorry to disturb. Did you take the blonde woman's necklace? Hisaka cut in. Huh? I gasped in surprise. Nobody talks like that in polite society. The girl nodded unemotionally. Yes, it was me. She admitted it flat out? I stared speechless. Where is the necklace now? Hisaka asked. Looking for it? She replied. It's gone. I can't return it. Gone. I managed. Because the necklace was eaten by a bulgi fish. Bulgi fish? My brain spun. It's this guy. The girl extended her arm. With a puff of smoke, a teal-green vacuum the size of her appeared in her hand. Whoa. What is that, magic? I exclaimed. Hisaka slammed the back of my head. Are you stupid? You can make things appear, but call someone else's ability magic? Ow. That hurt. I screamed, clutching the sore spot. Are you a demon? How can you hit a weak little girl? I just didn't react fast enough. The girl adjusted her glasses and calmly asked, Do you too? Want to come inside and sit down? Hey hunters. Quick break. Hope you're enjoying the new fanfic so far. Good job to you for not dropping it just cause the MC's female. Now let's keep going. Chapter 11. I was invited to come in and sit down for some unknown reason. Actually, I was still very nervous. After all, There was a guy like Hisaka who directly asked if the necklace was with me. Anyone would think he had bad intentions. After we entered the room and sat down somewhat awkwardly, the girl did not pour us tea but sat directly opposite me. I thought coming in and sitting down meant she wanted to treat us to tea, while Hisaka chose a place to sit against the wall and automatically kept a distance from us. May I ask why you asked us to come in? I asked. There's no particular reason. I just felt tired standing there, she said expressionlessly. Is this girl a 3-no type? From beginning to end, she shows no emotion at all. So what is this bulgy-eyed fish you just mentioned? I continued. That child you saw is the bulgy-eyed fish, and it will eat everything I command. Eh? It sounds really powerful. Did it eat the necklace just now? Yes. Is it impossible to get things back once they've been eaten? This is really a very useful skill. That way, I wouldn't have to take out the trash at home anymore. The first thing you thought of was trash? You're such a loser, Hisaka, who was sitting nearby, suddenly interrupted. Huh? I frowned and turned to glare at him, but he gestured for me to stop and continued, but is it really okay to tell us your ability so easily? Tilda. It doesn't matter. I don't have anyone I care about anyway, she said. This conversation once again made it difficult for me to follow their train of thought. What does that mean? Is a nen ability something you shouldn't talk about? Someone you care about? What does that have to do with revealing one's ability? I looked at Hisaka in confusion, hoping he would explain it to me. Hisaka glanced at me and smiled. You really don't know anything about this. Exposing one's ability is very dangerous for a nen user. It's like letting your opponent see all your cards before a game. In this world, once you master nen, you're swept into the turbulence of nen users. No matter how you try to escape, you'll be found eventually, drawn into something. So even though we're chatting in a room today, we might be enemies killing each other tomorrow. But that's where the fun lies. I was silent for a moment. My mind was a mess, but I understood what Hisaka meant. But could that really happen? A former partner becoming your enemy? That kind of thing always makes me sad. If Hisaka ever wants to kill me, I'll definitely wish to die with you, I said. Then I'd better be careful before I attack you. The girl sitting next to me tilted her head and suddenly said, It feels so good. I turned back to look at her, not understanding what she meant. Are you two friends? Friends? Who would be friends with such a pervert? Being his friend means being at risk of dying at any time. But you seem to get along well. It feels good to have someone you can talk to and care about. I was speechless for a moment and didn't know what to say. If you count carefully, I've only known Hisaka for less than 2 days. If he hadn't insisted on taking me in as his apprentice, I wouldn't have had anything to do with him. I can't really call him a friend. Who would be friends with someone who might kill them at any time? But it's actually quite nice following him and getting free food and lodging. It feels more like a mutually beneficial relationship than friendship, though I don't know what he's getting from me. And putting everything else aside, in the end, I was the one being unilaterally suppressed. He said if I dared to run away, he'd kill me, right? He did say that. He definitely said that. Why did you steal that woman's necklace? Hisaka asked her directly, shifting the topic. Because that person is annoying. How so? I asked. He knocked over my lunch, didn't apologize, and scolded me. The development of this plot feels a bit familiar. I see. That reason is simpler than I thought. I thought you were going to sell it for money or something, but it turns out you just hated him. It's not simple, the girl said, placing her hands on her legs with a harmless expression. This is revenge. Those big eyes behind her glasses made her look innocent and cute, yet there was a kind of indifference that made her unpredictable, and therefore frightening. This person. Is definitely a natural-born dark type. The topic turned awkward. I guess Hisoka had achieved his goal. The necklace couldn't be recovered anyway, so I felt there was no need to stay any longer. With that in mind, I stood up and prepared to leave. Then I won't bother you anymore. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. It'll take a while to get to the station anyway. Why don't we play cards? That familiar, frivolous tone rang out again. Hisoka sat against the wall with one leg propped up, an arm resting on his knee, and in his hand was a deck of playing cards that had appeared out of nowhere. Okay, the girl agreed without hesitation. The range of their shared interests was so wide I didn't even know where to begin complaining. I just stood there, staring at their excited expressions, and compromised once again, helplessly. The one comforting thing was that even though their worldviews were vastly different, card games were surprisingly universal. Instead of playing the familiar landlord, they played a version of Old Maid. I didn't know what Hisoka's true intention was in proposing cards, but it was indeed a good way to kill time. You don't have to think too much, and you can chat while playing. Come to think of it, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Amber, and this is Hisoka. My name is Demi. Ah, what a cute name. Thanks. Demi, did you come out on your own? Where are your parents? It's just me. I don't have anything like parents. Ah? I was stunned. No, do you mean? Did something happen to them? No, because I'm a kid from Meteor Street. Ah. Sorry. Why? Demi asked, tilting her head in confusion at my apology. Because I feel like I mentioned something that might make you sad. I lowered my head and picked out the last pair of matching cards from my hand, not daring to meet her eyes. Why? She asked again. Demi doesn't feel sad. Most kids from Meteor Street don't have relatives. It's very common. Meteor Street? No wonder I thought you were a little different, Hisoka said, taking a card from Demi's hand and throwing down a pair of sixes. What is Meteor Street? I asked again like some annoying little kid. Still, I silently thanked the two of them. Even though they were both quite abnormal, they were surprisingly patient and didn't seem to mind my endless questions. How should I put it? It's kind of like a city-sized garbage dump. All the hidden, shameful things can be dumped there. It's a place outside the control of any government. But don't look down on it, there are quite a lot of people living there, Hisoka explained, while Demi listened and nodded silently. It sounds so fantastical, like a place that only exists in novels. But it's not easy to leave Meteor Street. You're very strong, Hisoka said to Demi with a smile. Really? Demi replied as she drew a 3 from my hand. So, what made you come here? Hisoka continued. Nothing really. I just got tired of life over there. Ah, I win. As she threw down a pair of 3s, I noticed that her hand was now empty. So fast. I couldn't help exclaiming. That's right, a place like Meteor Street really doesn't make you want to stay forever. The outside world has so many new, glittering things, an endless supply of resources and treasures. Anyone with a bit of ability will want to leave and see the world. Really? Those things don't matter to me. I just want to make companions. Real companions. I looked at Demi. She was focused on watching Hisoka shuffle the cards, speaking calmly. Chapter 12. We spent the whole afternoon playing cards to kill time. Later, not satisfied with playing Old Maid, Hisoka taught me a new game, which seemed to be called folding quilts. It was a bit more difficult than Old Maid, but not so hard that I couldn't grasp it. After that, I explained the rules of landlord to them. They remembered everything after just one explanation, and what's more, they were able to beat me after only practicing a few times. Are these two devils or something? How can they learn so fast? Even though I wasn't great at cards, I was still a veteran compared to beginners. I had wanted to take this chance to crush Hisoka, but I didn't expect him to learn so quickly. Landlord is obviously a hard game, okay. I shuffled the cards with a tearful expression. I felt it would be better to go back to Old Maid. It was based on luck, and my odds of winning were better. We played until it was almost dark. Then Hisaka suddenly said he had something to do and had to leave. The airship was so small, we didn't know where he could go. Demi and I were left in the room. We'd played enough cards, so we ended up just flipping through TV channels out of boredom. At that moment, she suddenly asked if I wanted to read a book. When I heard that, I was stunned and immediately perked up, showing great interest. Demi took out 3 novels from her luggage and handed them to me. Damn, I forgot I can't read. I looked at her with a miserable face. Demi nodded knowingly and said it was normal, I was still a child, after all. We chatted idly, and Demi told me the story in the book and some things about Meteor Street. She said that after reading it, she envied the protagonists' adventures, how, as long as they had companions, even sad things could turn happy. She said she had never met anyone she could truly call a companion, only people who wanted to steal from her. She didn't know what others in Meteor Street thought about friendship, but she felt she couldn't make real friends there. That's why she left. She asked me, Amber, do you like the story of Sparta? That was the title of the book she had just told me about. I nodded seriously. After dinner, we returned to our rooms. Hisaka and I were in the same room, so I said good night to Demi when we parted. The night sky outside the airship was no different from looking down from an airplane. The crisscrossing city lights below formed a web of warm yellow, like stars that had fallen to the earth. No matter how many times you look, it's always mesmerizing. The magic of the night is powerful, it's easy to get lost in it. After showering, I sat by the window watching the scenery while waiting for my hair to dry. The night view outside gave me a sense of déjà vu. It made me feel nostalgic. Voila, the bathroom door opened, mist curling out. Hisaka stepped out with only a towel wrapped around his waist. His red hair was wet and clung to his cheeks, water dripping down. He casually rubbed it with the towel around his neck. Quiet moments are always short. I stared at him for 3 seconds, then blinked twice. This figure. And those abs. Really something. Can't you put on some clothes before coming out? Even though I admired the view, I still complained. What? Are you not used to the towel? Pervert, I muttered without mercy. Though we shared a room, it had 2 beds, one single, one double. Since I was just over 1.3 meters tall, I obviously got the single. I didn't know why I ended up rooming with Hisaka. Probably because he bought the tickets and went with the cheapest family bundle or something. Anyway, I didn't pay for it, so I didn't want to dwell on it. You're not going to sleep naked tonight, are you? I asked, frowning at his lack of intention to get dressed. What's the big deal? You're just a kid, and it's dark anyway. Why be scared? Hey, it's not about seeing or not seeing. You should at least have some decency. Put on pants before going to bed. Hisaka didn't answer, just chuckled softly. This guy is seriously twisted. The air fell quiet as Hisaka brushed his hair. I thought for a moment and said, if you dare try anything weird, I'll drag you to the grave with me. Oh my, so fierce. I'm serious, I said coldly. But didn't I already say I'm not interested in little girls who don't even have fully formed brains? Huh? What's wrong with my brain? I growled, grabbing the pillow and chucking it at him. Hisaka caught it easily, then mocked, you're too weak. A puppy could throw harder with its mouth. Did you skip dinner? Shut up. I'm going to sleep, give me back my pillow. Still fuming, I climbed into bed. Because there was a pervert next door, I instinctively wrapped myself tightly in the blanket. A while later, I heard a noise and peeked. Hisaka went into the bathroom again, and when he came out, he had pants on. Seeing that, I felt a bit guilty. I'd been so rude earlier. What if he was actually just tolerating me this whole time? But he said nothing. He just glanced at me, turned off the light, and lay in bed with his back to me. A pang of guilt welled up. Sorry, Hisaka. I really thought you were a pervert. But you do wear pants to bed. I slept fitfully all night, feeling restless. I'd thought that after getting off that shaky train and switching to a cozy little bed, I'd finally sleep well. But I overestimated my sleep quality. I drifted in and out, repeatedly jolted awake by nightmares. Every time, the dream slipped away the moment I woke up, only fear remained. That fear was only eased by seeing Hisaka in the bed next to mine. First, knowing he hadn't moved meant he wasn't planning to hurt me. Second, just having someone else nearby helped me distinguish reality from dreams. But I know this is paradoxical. If I haven't woken from a dream, how can I even talk about reality? Though I've only been in this world for 2 days, I've experienced so much. I've been gradually adapting, but also confronting the reality that this is another world. So, is this really a dream? It's a question I don't want to think about, but must. If I keep avoiding it, I'll never get an answer. I have to think about what this world truly is, and then try to accept that truth. Only then can I change my situation and take control of my life. In fact, I already have the answer. From the moment I noticed the language differences and saw the writing, I knew the truth. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to face the fact that I'd been thrown into another world with no warning. What about my family? My friends? The life I'd built over 18 years? Is it all gone? How can I convince myself to accept this new reality? Even if I must accept it, it still hurts. Deep down, I still wish I could wake up in my room. I still want to know if there's a way back. Partly from nostalgia, but mostly from fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of starting over with relationships and responsibilities. Thanks to my ability, I can stay calm. I won't starve, at least. I can barely cover food, shelter, and transport. I felt sleepy, anxious, and plagued by nightmares. When I woke up the next day, I was completely drained. Hisaka looked at me and commented, "Do I look like someone who'd attack a child? You were so scared you couldn't sleep." Ha! I got out of bed and stumbled to the bathroom. When I came out, Hisaka was already waiting at the door. "Let's go have breakfast," he said. "You're really motivated when it comes to food." The airship arrived at the station that morning. As it prepared to land, I pulled Hisaka and went to say goodbye to Demi. When the door cracked open, she peeked out with surprise, but quickly recovered. She opened the door, still in the same plain clothes as yesterday. "Good morning, Amber," she said. "We're almost at the station. We came to say goodbye." "We?" Demi tilted her head. "Anyone else besides you?" "And Hisaka?" I gestured behind me. "Who's that?" Demi doesn't know him. Huh? Huh? I practically had a question mark over my head. How can that be? We played cards together yesterday. I don't know. Demi doesn't know him. I turned to look at Hisaka in confusion. He just spread his hands with an indifferent expression. He had no idea either. "More importantly, there's something I'd like to ask Amber to help with," Demi said, ignoring Hisaka completely. "Ah. Sure. I'll do whatever I can." Though I felt weird about the situation, I still went along with her. Did she lose her memory? "Demi wants to buy new glasses. After we land, can you come help me pick a pair?" So that's it. Of course I smiled and turned back to ask Hisaka, "You don't mind, right?" "You're such a busybody," Hisaka said slowly. "But since you played cards with me yesterday, I'll let it slide this time." With a clear task ahead, I perked up. My fatigue vanished. After all, women love shopping. We happily followed Hisaka and Demi off the airship and arrived in a city called Salopez. It was vastly different from the last city. If that place could even be called a city, then this was a full-blown metropolis. There were skyscrapers, multi-lane roads, and viaducts weaving through the buildings. It all felt very modern. So there are cities this advanced here, I marveled. So where do we go to buy glasses? Here. The eyewear store, Demi said, pointing to a high-end shop nearby. Ah. So close. I was surprised to find a glasses shop right next to the airport. I thought airports only had specialty goods, food, and duty-free stuff. But this place even had an eyewear shop, and it had customers. Like us. Inside, a dazzling array of frames lined the counters. It was a huge store. Demi stood at the entrance, lightly tapping her chin with a finger. Welcome. Can I help you find something? The salesgirl greeted us warmly. Demi doesn't know which frame to pick. Can Amber help me? She asked. Of course. No problem. I replied. I searched carefully, trying flat, square, round, semicircular, and even exaggerated frames. In the end, I decided large frame glasses would suit her best. Demi had big eyes, and small frames didn't do them justice. Eventually, I spotted a dark red square frame. Though square, the corners were rounded, almost semicircular. It felt right, so I handed it to her. Want to try this one? She put them on. The burgundy frame complemented her black hair. Her dark eyes behind the lenses shifted slightly, and her thick lashes fluttered like wings. I was stunned. She looked like a red spider lily blooming in the dark, quiet and dangerous. That aloof aura made her seem bound by her own rules, unable to blend into others' worlds. Difficult to connect with others. While Hisaka also seemed distant, the two were fundamentally different. Hisaka didn't care about understanding or connection. He just did what was fun, regardless of what others thought. Forcing me to be his apprentice proved that. To achieve his goals, he'd gladly make sacrifices. Demi was different. She had her own goals, but her principles came first. Only after honoring her rules would she seek companions who aligned with them. How does it look? Demi asked when she noticed me zoning out. Ah, it's really perfect, I snapped out of it and praised her sincerely. Even Hisaka, who watched the entire process, nodded. Really? She looked in the mirror. Then I'll buy this one. After picking the frame, Demi went to get her prescription. I stood beside Hisaka with arms crossed when he suddenly said, "Waiting is boring, why don't I try on a pair too?" Forget it. Watching a pervert try glasses doesn't sound fun. I knew I couldn't stop him, but I had to say something. Sure enough, he ignored me completely. He grabbed a pair of flat black frames and put them on. Pushing back the hair under the lenses, he smirked. How do I look, Amber? I narrowed my eyes and turned away. Meh. I didn't want to admit it, but this guy really was handsome. If you ignored the whole pervert thing, he'd probably have fans lined up around the block. What a shame. Everyone knows, you can't praise a pervert. They'll get cocky. So, to hide my reaction, I coldly said, "Just so," and turned my head away to avoid further interaction. Chapter 13. We didn't say goodbye to Demi until she got her new pair of glasses. Before leaving, I patted her on the shoulder and said firmly, "You'll definitely find a companion you can get along with." She looked at me silently for a moment, then nodded and replied, "Well, goodbye." After parting ways, I continued my journey with Hisaka. We had arrived at our planned destination city, but I had no idea what was next. As I followed Hisaka past the airport waiting area, a sense of dread began creeping up on me. I hurried a few steps to catch up and asked cautiously, "Where are we going now?" "Of course, we're going to the city center," Hisaka said without even glancing at me. It's pretty far from here to the center. Don't you want to take a taxi? I asked nervously, holding my breath. No need, just run. Well, what you fear always comes true. Seeing Hisaka's smile as he ignored my suffering, I decided I had to make a final stand. After all, the psychological trauma of being bounced around and run-ragged the past 2 days had taken its toll. I had to push back this time and reason with him seriously. Ahem, I cleared my throat. Hisaka, I think we'd be better off taking a car. Why? Because I'm afraid you'll get tired from running. Yes, this is my concern as your disciple. And think about it, you have to carry me too, it must be even more exhausting. If we take a car, it's relaxing, and we can enjoy the view. I looked at him with puppy dog eyes, trying to move him with my sincere fake concern about his well-being. In truth, I just didn't want to be manhandled again. I refuse. Too much trouble. Show some gratitude, you jerk. I followed him, weeping internally, glaring at his bizarre outfit, and cursed him a dozen times in my head. But I still wanted one last try. No room for negotiation? I asked pitifully, tugging on his shirt, hoping to slow him down. What the hell? What kind of skin-tight suit is this? I couldn't even get a grip. Due to my height, I could only tug at his waist, not that I was about to grab his pants. I wasn't trying to get him to think I was the pervert. Trying not to let my expression twist with frustration, I silently prayed I hadn't accidentally pinched his skin. Sorry, no discussion, he said, glancing at me. Then, this is my final request. You have to agree no matter what. Hisaka raised a brow. What is it? I took a deep breath, stared him straight in the eye, and declared, this time, please change the way you carry me. There's no way I'll be carried princess style again. Not in this life. I'd foolishly assumed he had some chivalry or basic decency, that he'd understand I wanted to be treated a little more gently. Apparently not. Although he shamelessly refused to carry me like a princess again, he did agree to change positions. Which, to me, was a kind of victory. Seeing him crouch down and sling me over his shoulder like a sack was humiliating, but better than before. Before we set off, I asked, can you at least tell me what we're doing next? Hisaka thought for a moment. We're going to meet a friend of mine. That sentence was the last coherent thought I had. He started moving faster than ever before. And as if sprinting across flat ground wasn't bad enough, this lunatic didn't even use normal paths. A red blur darted between buildings like a wild mountain antelope. The wind whipped past my legs like ice blades. Thank God my skirt was long and pinned down by Hisaka's arm, or it would have flown straight into his face. The dizzying rush overwhelmed my brain. As someone who's been terrified of roller coasters and bungee jumping my whole life, I was sure this was where my soul would leave my body. I couldn't even scream. I couldn't breathe. I was simply dying every second from extreme acceleration. An endless, hellish journey. I might have been crying. Or I might have been too scared to cry. If I looked in a mirror, I'd probably see a face more twisted than a bitter melon. Why haven't I passed out yet? Someone help me. God. Suddenly, like finding oxygen in the deep sea, I had a moment of clarity. If I could just pass out, I'd escape this torture. I had to make that happen. During a brief pause in his movement, I forced open my clenched jaw and croaked, I wish. Hisaka stopped dead in his tracks. The inertia nearly flung me into the sky, but he raised one hand and held me down. Then, in a chillingly unnatural tone, he asked, what were you trying to do just now? Tilda. Suddenly, a murderous aura engulfed me. Every hair on my body stood on end. It was as if giant hands were closing around my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't blink. I couldn't move. My heart pounded in my ears, and even my limbs went numb from cold. The fear from all that jumping vanished, replaced by this frozen moment of sheer terror. Maybe. This time, I really would die. Hey, Hisaka, that murderous aura of yours is insane. I could feel it from way over here. A voice suddenly shattered the tension. A black-haired boy stepped out from the corner and raised his hand in greeting. Oh, it's Illumi. At the sound of his voice, Hisaka snapped back to himself. The murderous pressure disappeared in an instant, and time resumed. I gasped desperately for air. Beads of sweat mixed with tears streamed down my face. My body trembled violently and uncontrollably. What's that on your shoulder? A little girl? The boy asked flatly. Hisaka, are you seriously into kids now? No, Illumi, she just has a rather interesting nen ability. She'll be useful in this operation. Hisaka bent down and placed me on the ground, but I couldn't stand on my own. Seeing this, he grabbed my collar like before to keep me from collapsing. Snap. I used all my strength to slap his hand away. With nothing supporting me, I crumpled to the ground and burst into tears. I couldn't stop. Oh. You're mad. Hisaka paused, sounding slightly unsure for once. It was because you suddenly released such intense killing intent that even I sensed it and rushed over, Illumi added. But you can't blame me entirely, Hisaka said, with a half-smile. She suddenly tried to activate her ability, and I couldn't help myself. There's no point explaining it to me. Chapter 14. This was the first time in my life I felt that death could be so close to me. So close I could reach out and touch it. So close that even the god of death might whisper a lullaby in my ear. The indescribable fear was like being trapped in a dark, narrow box. You know you'll suffocate in the sealed space, but you can't even crack the lid. You know you're going to die, yet there's nothing you can do to save yourself. You're not even a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, you're just helpless. If this man really wanted to kill me, I wouldn't stand a chance. I might not even have time to make a wish before being decapitated. These past few days, I'd been playing some kind of master-disciple game with him like a fool. When it came down to it, he only kept me alive for entertainment. I had no agency. I couldn't set the pace. Communication? Resistance? Ridiculous? Everything was on his terms. The gears were turning on a path he had already laid out. My experience was just part of a magician's act. Because this person is Hisaka, and no other reason. I don't know how long I cried. I cried from fear, from humiliation, from sadness, and from how laughable I felt. A man over 1.9 meters tall suddenly panicked as he watched me, maybe because he felt guilty for making a child cry, or maybe because he didn't want to embarrass himself in front of a friend. Or maybe he was afraid I'd never recover and become useless to him. But I can promise, if I ever had to feel that kind of killing intent again, my nervous system would collapse. I'd rather die than endure it. Hisaka crouched in front of me in a panic. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. So he turned to the black-haired boy behind him and pleaded, "What should I do, Illumi? I think I really scared her." "You reap what you sow," Illumi replied flatly. Hisaka looked dejected. There were sounds around me, voices, footsteps, the rustle of fabric, but even though I could hear them, my brain couldn't process them. My consciousness was slipping. I think I saw Hisaka offering me ice cream, but my vision was too blurry to focus, my mind spinning out of control. I couldn't move, couldn't register anything, couldn't hear what Hisaka was saying. What little awareness I had left began to fade, until the last light in my eyes went out and the world turned pitch black. If only. A large hand suddenly landed on my head and gently ruffled my hair. There. Be good," came a soft voice. The fading consciousness snapped back like a drowning person gasping at the surface. I suddenly opened my eyes. The world brightened again, and in front of me was a pale-skinned boy with black hair and black eyes. He looked about 18 or 19, with short, straight black hair falling quietly over his cheeks. His dark eyes were like pools of black ink on white parchment, absorbing all light. He crouched in front of me, silently watching. I don't know why, but despite his emotionless expression, I didn't feel scared at all. Maybe it was because he had no killing intent. Even though his face looked cold and robotic, I sensed a strange tenderness in his eyes. Without realizing it, I stopped crying. He continued to gently rub my head, then wiped away the tear tracks on my cheeks. There. Good girl, he said softly in the emotionless voice. Hisaka stared at him for a long time before muttering in disbelief, I didn't expect you to actually be good at this. Of course. I'm the eldest brother of 3 kids. A touch of that big brother tenderness, Hisaka said with a smirk. Anyway, what ability were you referring to? Illumi asked, still comforting me. She was completely unprotected when you hit her with that murderous aura. Can she really use telepathy? Of course. I saw it myself, Hisaka replied. But I'm afraid her ability wasn't obtained through traditional nen training. The details are unclear. What is certain is that other than that one ability, she knows nothing about nen basics. I see. Illumi nodded thoughtfully. Well, let's get out of here first. With that, he gently scooped me up. A Princess Carrie. At this point, my mind had almost fully recovered, and my thoughts weren't as sluggish. I blinked, reassessing my surroundings and recalling their earlier conversation. Am I dreaming? Is this the friend from the assassin family Hisaka mentioned? No way, are all professional assassins this gentle? He looked cold like a robot, but here he was, carrying me like a princess. A real Princess Carrie. Thinking about how terrified I'd been earlier, I nearly burst into tears again. Like Hisaka, this boy also possessed extraordinary abilities. When he ran while carrying me, I barely felt any weight shift. But this time, we were on flat ground, no crazy rooftop stunts. The difference in treatment was staggering. From time to time, I'd catch a glimpse of Hisaka trailing behind, his red hair fluttering in the breeze. Suddenly, I didn't know how to face him. Should I stay angry? After all, I'd almost died. Being angry or afraid made perfect sense. But realistically, I'd known from the start that Hisaka could kill me at any time. I should have been mentally prepared. That overwhelming fear, it came from my inability to control my emotions. Just like watching a horror movie, even if you know it's fake, you're still scared. I'd already prepared myself for the worst-case scenario. So what made me angry wasn't that Hisaka wanted to kill me. It was that he did it without asking a single question. Even if we're not friends, even if we're just master and disciple. Why can't you trust me, even a little? Fortunately, I'm just a kid. Kids don't hold grudges. They only care about snacks and ice cream. They don't overthink things. So maybe Hisaka can bribe me with a treat, and by tomorrow, we'll go back to normal. That's probably the only way forward. I suddenly realized the true source of my sorrow. It wasn't the fear of almost dying, or the betrayal of trust. It was the sense of alienation. We continued in silence. The sky above was bright, the scenery around us a blur. I sighed and closed my eyes. Let me escape for just a little longer. After about 15 minutes, I felt the person carrying me come to a stop. I opened my eyes and saw a large villa ahead. I was stunned, about to speak, when he answered first. This is my villa, the boy said. Can you walk now? I nodded. He gently lowered me to the ground. I grabbed his arm and took a few wobbly steps. You're recovering quickly, the boy observed. Really? My voice came out a little awkward. After a few more steps, I felt stable enough to let go and stand on my own. Then I turned to face him. Can you tell me your name? I asked. Sure, he said, his face as blank as ever. My name is Illumi Zoldyck. Chapter 15. It's said that this villa is under Illumi's name, and he owns more than one property. Maybe it's because he visits this city often, or maybe he just thinks the feng shui is good here. The interior is very simple. Clearly, he has no particular taste in decor. The house has 2 floors, and I was given a clean bedroom on the 2nd floor. This guy's a real rich man. So being an assassin is actually that lucrative? But doesn't being a killer come with a ton of enemies? Is it really safe to buy a house so openly? To calm me down, Hisaka began a series of ridiculous peace offerings. First, he came in to ask how I was doing. After I made it very clear that I wasn't hungry, thirsty, or sleepy, and just wanted him to stay away from me, he left, disappointed. A few minutes later, a playing card slid in through the door crack. He poked his head in and asked if I wanted to play cards. I rejected him again. Then, a while later, he suddenly popped up behind me with a pile of snacks and toys, including strange things like anime girl figurines, body pillows, and loads of chocolate. I stared at the pile in his arms and asked flatly, "Where did you even get the idea to bring all this?" Hisaka replied that he learned it from Illumi. He said one of Illumi's younger brothers calms down when given these things after crying. I now seriously suspect Illumi's brother is a chocolate-loving otaku. Finally, I hesitantly reached out and took one of the ice creams Hisaka offered. He asked me, "So, not mad anymore?" I took a lick of the ice cream, glanced at him sideways, and replied, "In your dreams." Operation Comfort Amber failed again. Hisaka slumped out of the room, visibly dejected. It was the first time I'd seen him so down, and honestly, it was a little funny. I sat curled up in a corner of the sofa, chin propped on my knees, lost in thought. A while later, there was another knock at the door. I looked up and saw Illumi entering. "Yo." He walked right in and raised a hand in greeting. I actually had a pretty favorable impression of Illumi. If he hadn't shown up back then, I might have become a literal ghost thanks to Hisaka. And somehow, in that moment, he pulled me back from the edge, back from total darkness. Compared to that guy, Illumi was far more gentle. I quickly finished the last bites of my ice cream and greeted him, "Hello." Illumi sat down directly in front of me on the coffee table, arms folded, legs crossed, expression blank. I heard everything from Hisaka. "We really do need your ability. There's an operation in 3 months that'll require your help, and you must participate. There's also an event in 2 days that'll go much smoother with your ability, so I hope you'll forgive Hisaka before then. As compensation, I've arranged for Hisaka to fulfill any request you make over the next 2 days." I digested his words and then asked, "What kind of task is it? If it's complicated, I'm sorry, I probably can't help. I don't want to end up unconscious for too long." "Don't worry. The ability we need from you is low impact. Other parts of the task might be difficult, but it seems you're the only one who can do it. Hisaka and I will protect you while you're unconscious. We can't tell you the mission details yet, but we'll begin preparations during these next 3 months." The young man looked at me with wide, vacant eyes. His delicate features didn't shift even a millimeter. That's when I realized, Illumi felt fundamentally different from Demi. Demi might look like one of those emotionless 3-no types on the surface, but she still had desires, she just didn't show them. Illumi, though, was cold, numb, untouchable. There was no light in his eyes. He seemed like a robot, just carrying out tasks. He wasn't flexible, didn't bend the rules, and ignored anything unrelated to his goals. That's probably why he asked Hisaka to bring me a bunch of toys I clearly wouldn't like. What kind of environment produces people like this? Be it Illumi, Hisaka, or Demi, every single person I've met in this world so far has a personality that would never be accepted back in my old world. It only proves how different the atmosphere of this world is. Just think about what Demi told me about Meteor City, a massive city with 8 million people and no government oversight. How could anyone survive in such a place? The deeper my understanding of this world gets, the more I realize how many things here fall outside my past knowledge, outside common sense. And yet, in this world, the strange becomes normal. I'm slowly getting used to that. After thinking for a long time, I looked up and asked Illumi, anything is possible? Of course. As long as it's within Hisoka's capabilities. Then I want to see Hisoka crossdress. Later, I chatted with Illumi for a while. I told him, a little bitterly, that I was just scared at the time and tried to use my ability to knock myself out, just to avoid the fear. I never expected Hisoka to react so violently. He didn't even ask for an explanation before deciding to kill me. Illumi said that making Hisoka dress as a woman was an excellent idea. He even offered to secretly take a picture, print it, and give me a copy. We happily agreed. Afterward, I asked him about his family and if buying houses might expose him to enemies. Illumi said these houses weren't registered under his real name, and he didn't care if enemies came to him, but if people knew this was his property, someone might try to burn it down. I nodded. His approach was smart. He also told me a bit about the Zoldyck family, including Kokoro Mountain, the giant guard dog, and his adorable little brothers. Honestly, it didn't sound like an assassin family at all, more like a big, tight-knit clan. After our talk, Illumi said he'd go relay our conversation to Hisoka, then left the room. Once he was gone, an overwhelming wave of exhaustion hit me, and I curled up on the sofa and fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 16. When I woke up, it was already late at night. Illumi's villa wasn't in the city center, it was closer to the suburbs. The sky was clear, and in a place like this, you could always see the stars. I don't know when a thin quilt was placed over me, but I sat up from the sofa in a daze, still wrapped in it. There was a large floor-to-ceiling window in the second-floor bedroom, and a small balcony just outside. I suddenly opened the window. With the chirping of insects, cool moonlight poured in through the glass. A faint floral scent drifted in on the breeze, laced with damp air. I didn't know which flower it came from, just that it smelled like wild greenery. Summer nights are beautiful. The moonlight is soft, the plants are lush, everything is lovely. Illumi's garden showed no signs of careful cultivation. Wildflowers and weeds grew freely. The stars above sparkled like scattered gems. I stood there silently, thoughts drifting back to my distant hometown and the ordinary, lazy life I once had. I really want to go back. I miss the simple life I used to live. You're awake. I didn't even notice when Hisoka appeared beside me. He leaned on the balcony railing, staring up at the sky with me. I didn't respond, just nodded faintly. Sometimes, I think you don't seem like a 10-year-old child. Your temperament. How should I say it? It feels too mature. You didn't come all this way just to say that, did you? Of course not. I'm just being honest. Hey, Hisoka, I asked calmly, why did you agree to something like that? He blinked. What do you mean? We'll do our best to meet any request. That was something you and Illumi decided together, right? Why go so far? Haven't I already explained it to you? Illumi and I really need your ability. Liar. I rolled my eyes. If it was just about using my power, either of you could have forced me easily. You didn't need to go through all that trouble to please me. You were sharp. Yes, if we only needed your ability, Illumi and I have plenty of ways to make you cooperate. But what if that wasn't our only goal? What else is there? Hisoka changed posture, propping his chin in one hand and tilting his head at me. Maybe we could be friends. He smiled, golden eyes gleaming with mischief, tone light and playful. And just like that, I felt a bit dazed. Friends? With Hisoka? With your ability, It would be more convenient if you did things willingly rather than being forced. And like I said before, I don't enjoy coercing people, he continued. Besides, I gave it serious thought today. All things considered, I think we could be good friends. Would you kill your friends too? Of course, while the concepts of friend and toy are different, they do overlap. I'm not interested in friends who aren't fun. No matter the situation, he always prioritizes his own amusement. For him, fun justifies anything, even harm. He's a pure hedonist, but his fun is nothing like normal people's. Totally your style, I chuckled softly. But Illumi told me you're not his friend. Eh? Hisoka froze. He said you're his ATM. Watching his expression freeze mid-smile, I couldn't help but laugh. I patted his arm with exaggerated sympathy, shaking my head in mock regret. Well then, I look forward to your performance tomorrow, I said sweetly, covering my mouth and batting my eyes at him. Then I turned and bolted back inside, slamming the window shut and yanking the curtains closed, leaving Hisoka stunned outside. That was risky. I really hope he doesn't kill me for teasing him. But wow. That was satisfying. I'd slept well that afternoon, but now I had insomnia. I found the chocolate candies Hisoka brought to be surprisingly tasty. There were also a bunch of identical golden robot toys. I chewed a candy and muttered, who even likes these ugly toys? They all look the same. So boring. Oh? The next box I opened had a turquoise robot in a different style. Wait, there are other designs. Was I just unlucky? I tore open the rest, most were still the same gold one. I sighed. What a letdown. I was hoping for something pink. Tossing aside the last toy, I picked up the anime girl figure. I didn't fully get the appeal, but I had to admit, they were really cute. I opened all the snacks and tasted each one. I played with all the toys. Eventually, too bored to sleep, I lay on the carpet and stared at the ceiling. Looking at the pile of unopened toys and pretty figures, I figured it'd be a waste to leave them here. I should ask Illumi to give them to his little brother. I don't remember when I fell asleep again. All I knew was that early the next morning, someone suddenly yanked open my curtains, and sunlight flooded the room. So bright. Who the hell is making all this noise first thing in the morning? I buried my head in the blanket in protest, but I couldn't breathe and had to crawl out. Hey! Don't you know how to knock before coming into a girl's room? Is it Illumi? I grumbled groggily. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, then froze. Blank. My mind went completely blank. After 3 seconds, I shot up, frantically fixing my messy hair and awkwardly smiled. Good morning, Illumi. Morning. Illumi nodded. I'm here early because of what we talked about yesterday. What happened yesterday? Oh, the mission? Yes, he said plainly. But first, Hisoka, come in. As he clapped, the door creaked open. First, I saw a frilly pink parasol embroidered with lace. Then came oversized feet in high heels. A massive puffy dress stretched tight over obvious muscle. Crimson waves of hair flowed down to the waist. And then, with a grin and a wink. Hisoka. Good thing I hadn't eaten breakfast yet. I figured you might feel sick, so I made sure you saw this before you ate, Illumi said calmly beside me. How is it does it suit me? Hisoka purred, clearly pleased with himself. Illumi, ever emotionless, took out a camera and snapped a few shots. He even turned to take some of my stunned reaction. My emotions were in chaos. I was so overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of the sight, I couldn't speak. I seriously began to question my life choices. It was too much. Just too much. Illumi, of course, remained entirely composed. Clutching my chest, I took a few deep breaths. I closed my eyes, then opened them again, glancing left and right, but not at Hisoka. Once I regained control, I covered my face and whispered to Illumi. I said women's clothing, sure, but this? Why this style? It's from my mother. She happened to be in the city, so I borrowed it. I had no words. So many things wrong with that sentence. I didn't even know where to begin. Hisaka struck another pose. What? Doesn't it fit? It fits. It fits. I beg you, go change, please. I waved frantically, face crumpling. Hisaka left looking satisfied. Illumi gave me a small nod and left as well, still calm. At last, I was free of cross-dressing Hisaka. I made a silent vow right then and there, I would never casually ask someone to wear women's clothing again. Ever. Still traumatized, I made the bed and headed downstairs. Chapter 17. Small, delicate snacks were placed on a square table, and sweet fruit tea was steeping in an elegant tea set from who knows where. This was Illumi's garden. Aside from the chaotic wildflowers and weeds surrounding us, it looked like a picture-perfect setting for girls having afternoon tea. Illumi leaned back on the wooden bench, arms folded, and tilted his chin toward the table, signaling that I could help myself. Once again, I was stunned by the absurdity of these two people. What even is this? A tea party? I didn't think you were into this kind of thing, Illumi. Hisaka said you weren't interested in the stuff I got you last time. In hindsight, those were things my brother likes. You're a little girl, of course you wouldn't like them. So this time, I did some research on what girls actually enjoy. What do you think? Satisfied now? Illumi said, his voice oddly confident. They're really treating me like a kid. After a moment of silence, I sighed in surrender. Satisfied. Afternoon tea, snacks, lacy aesthetic, I get it. Every girl dreams of this kind of thing growing up. Not bad, not bad. But there's no lace here, Illumi replied blankly. Don't sweat the details. I smiled stiffly. To mask my embarrassment, I grabbed the teacup and took a sip, too fast to check the temperature. Too hot. Fighting the urge to spit it out, I forced it down with tears in my eyes. My tongue burned. Was this tea freshly boiled? What kind of suffering is this? Seeing me look like I was about to cry, Illumi asked, is it hot? I nodded miserably. That's strange. It's been sitting out for a while. Maybe. I've been sensitive to heat since I was a kid, I mumbled. Wait. Since when? This isn't my body. In my previous world, I wasn't heat sensitive at all. Why did I say that so naturally? Am I losing it? I frowned, puzzled. Maybe I just said it without thinking. Anyway, you brought me here to talk about the plan, right? I rubbed my face, trying to shift my mood and focus. That's right. Illumi nodded. The first phase of the mission begins tomorrow. Are you mentally prepared? Prepared or not, it doesn't matter. I already decided when I made the agreement with you and Hisaka, I said. If it involves killing people, I won't go back on my word. Don't worry about my feelings. Really? Illumi tilted his head slightly, his blank stare fixed on me. Because this time, we're not killing one person. We're targeting an entire organization. An organization? I echoed, surprised. Yes. It's called the Marine Animal Protection Society. At first, the name sounded like a harmless charity. But Illumi explained that this so-called organization is actually a criminal network involved in black market organ trafficking, with 25 members in total. I see. I nodded. So you've already gathered intel? Yes, Illumi said. We've identified all 25 members. Tracking them down individually is possible, but there's a complication: the members are scattered all over the world and operate erratically. They only follow orders from their leader, known as Fish. In other words, unless their boss gives the order, the other 24 act completely independently. He paused to take a sip of tea, then continued. Even though we know who all the members are, we still haven't figured out who the boss is. They don't use electronic devices. I suspect one of them has a NEN ability for transmitting information, and that person is most likely Fish. If we can identify him, we can force the entire group to regroup and wipe them out in one go. Makes sense. I picked up a macaron, nodded as I chewed, and quietly noted to myself that Illumi would look better in women's clothes than Hisoka ever did. Hisoka and I have tried tracking members down and interrogating them. But no matter what we did, torture, manipulation, they couldn't tell us anything. It wasn't that they didn't want to, they simply couldn't. I suspect there's a NEN condition or vow involved, something like reveal the secret and die. The ones we tried to manipulate died instantly. After 3 failed attempts, we gave up. So now there are only 22 members left. So, my role is? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. I grabbed another macaron while I waited. It's simple, Illumi said. Help us find out who Fish is. All right, I agreed easily. Then, staring at the plate, I added, if they're criminals, I guess we're doing society a favor. Eh? For once, Illumi looked surprised. It was the first time I'd seen him react like that, so I grew uneasy. Is that not okay? That's just how I see it. No, there's nothing wrong with that, he said, returning to his usual blank expression. You're free to interpret it however you like. But I'm not doing this to help society. I'm doing it for money. The mission would start tomorrow. In the afternoon, I wandered around Illumi's villa out of boredom. Nothing stood out, except a room full of large pins and nails. Was Illumi secretly into acupuncture? I picked one up and examined it, but found nothing special. I put it back and moved on. Evening arrived. After dinner, as usual, I returned to the bedroom balcony to enjoy the breeze. The orange-red sunset gradually faded, and the distant mountain ridges darkened. One by one, the stars reappeared in the night sky. I didn't know when Hisoka appeared beside me again. Do you ever knock before entering a girl's room? I complained. As usual, he gave that strange, vague smile and ignored my scolding. Instead, he asked, so? How was your chat with Illumi? It's not a hard mission. Just identifying someone. How was the tea setup? I went to a lot of places to find that tea set. Ah. Not bad. Very, very girly. I didn't have the heart to ruin his mood. Wait, he bought tea sets just to cheer me up? Is the sun rising from the west? Hey, Hisoka. I leapt up, balanced along the balcony railing, and threw myself at him. Last time, when you said you wanted to be friends, did you mean it? Huh? He looked genuinely surprised. Of course. Then what do you and Illumi think about murder? Oh? You agreed to help so quickly, I didn't expect you to worry about that, he teased. Cut it out and answer. I kicked him hard. Hisoka turned and leaned against the railing, casually pulling out a deck of cards. He shuffled them idly as he spoke. As for Illumi, he's a born killer. It doesn't matter who the target is, good or bad. If they pay, he finishes the job. No attachments. Me? I'm not in it for the kill. I'm in it for the thrill. Fighting people with potential, risking my life, that's what excites me. Whether they're green apples or ripe fruit. The temptation is irresistible, including you and Illumi. I think fighting you two would be delightful. There it is, Hisoka's infamous apple metaphor. I felt a chill run down my spine and involuntarily shrank back. But you're a little different, he added. I don't really feel the urge to fight you. What do you mean? Your ability's interesting, but not practical. Once you use it, you pass out. I don't enjoy fighting opponents like that. For now, at least. But who knows? I believe in your potential. Then pray you never get interested in me. And stop calling me Little Apple. What about you? He suddenly asked. Why did you agree to this mission? Well, didn't you? You don't actually want to kill anyone, do you? He interrupted. According to Illumi, even if you refused, we wouldn't have forced you. It's troublesome, but we'd handle it. Your help isn't essential for this mission. The 3 months from now is what matters. So why accept something that goes against your own morals? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I climbed up onto the balcony railing and sat comfortably, legs swinging. Hisako watched in silence. Who says it goes against my will? I said softly. I wouldn't kill someone on my own. But choosing to help you, that's my decision. After all, Hisaka, you said we're friends. That's it? He asked, surprised. Wrong. I grinned. There's also the fact that you bought me chocolate, ice cream, and macaron. Kids are easy to bribe. The summer breeze paused. In that moment, everything stilled, quiet, peaceful. Maybe for me, right or wrong doesn't matter. I just want to live freely, to enjoy calm moments like this. I don't have grand ambitions. Just peace and agency. In some ways, Hisaka and I aren't that different. Then, with a cheeky smile, I added, just kidding. But honestly, if I had to name a reason, it'd be something you said on the airship, Hisaka. Once you step into the world of Nen users, no matter how you hide, you'll be drawn into it eventually. That's the rule here. I can't escape it. All I can do is accept and adapt. Hisaka looked at me, and, for the first time, smiled like a normal person. That's right, he said gently. Chapter 18. I never expected that these two would wake me at 5 in the morning to make a wish. Don't they need sleep? What kind of healthy, early to bed, early to rise life is this? I was carried downstairs by Hisaka, grumbling in my mind. Illumi was already sitting on the sofa, waiting silently, apparently ready. According to Illumi, if the coordinates of fish are far, making a wish now gives us enough time to catch the earliest airship. Illumi will fetch the target, and Hisako will stay behind to look after me. As a reward, I'd get a rainbow layer cake and a Lolita dress. Seems like these two love these things more than I do. How did they even figure out girls like this? I pulled at my skirt and gave them a deadpan look. Two grown men, both half a head taller than me, stared expectantly. Do you two think this is a dress-up game or a role-play? A quaint tea party? Fine, if you like it so much, wear it yourselves. After I solemnly declared I'd never wear such frilly Lolita clothes, Illumi quietly sighed beside me. We'll talk about that later. Business first, Hisaka interrupted, steering us back to the mission. Illumi looked at me and nodded. I also want to see Amber's ability in action. What will be, will be. I took a deep breath, folded my hands at chest height, closed my eyes, and said in a serious voice, I wish for detailed information on the head of the Marine Animal Protection Society, codenamed Fish. A burst of white light flashed. A golden dye dropped from the sky, and a faint mechanical female voice echoed. I stared at the table, waiting. Wish takes effect. Points, 5. Restriction activated. The die landed on 5. Hisaka and I gaped. We didn't expect such a high roll so quickly. I hadn't explained the coma durations for each die before, most rolls had been 1, so I didn't remember the others well. All I recalled was the panic as I drifting unconscious while Hisaka called my name. Amber. I didn't even hear my own name before consciousness slipped away. It felt like I slept forever. My dreams were a blur of meaningless fragments. I felt distant, struggling to escape some unseen state. No matter how I moved, I stayed in place. When I fell asleep, there was only endless darkness. I realized for the first time that you can dream while unconscious. My head throbbed like it would split. I woke up groggy, leaning heavily on the bed. My stomach churned, nausea threatening. Wait, is this Illumi's villa? My room? Battling dizziness, I sat upright. Then the door opened, and Hisoka stepped in, sipping water. He glanced at me, froze mid-sip, and said, "You're awake?" I frowned, held my head, nodded weakly, and asked, "How long was I out?" "Just one day." Hisoka came over and sat on the bed, teasing, "Took 3 minutes to find fish, but 24 hours to wake you up if you didn't wake. Illumi and I were thinking of sending you to a hospital for. Even in pain, I couldn't help an eye roll. This heartless jerk, does he even feel sorry? No sympathy, just a complaint about my coma length." Suppressing a wince, I snatched his water cup and downed it. The warmth instantly calmed my head. Rubbing my forehead, I asked, "So, did Illumi find fish?" Of course Hisoka smiled. "Your 24-hour coma couldn't go to waste. Lucky for us, fish was closer than expected. In the next city, Illumi found him in under 90 minutes, then used his ability to control him. Turns out fish has an ability tied to a special card. Whoever holds it can receive his info, but must keep it secret or die. Hisoka told me Illumi used the card to instruct all members to meet in Salopez by 8 p.m. tonight at the Hidden Ruins. If all goes well, the mission ends tonight. Meanwhile, Illumi went shopping to kill time." "Great. After being woken at dawn, now shopping again?" I shuddered. "Okay, but how exactly did you get the info?" I asked Hisoka. "Same as last time," he smirked. "When you were unconscious, a page appeared on the table with all Fish's personal data, name, appearance, height, birthday, you name it." I rubbed my chin. "So, where's he now?" Hisoka raised an eyebrow. "In Illumi's basement." "Oh," I said slowly. "I want to meet him." "You want to?" "Of course, I'm just curious. I want to see the leader of a terrorist organization. And after being cooped up with you two, I need new scenery." Hisoka stared. I laughed. "First I'll wash up. Then you guide me there." With a scrape and a rattle, Hisoka opened the heavy basement door and lit a small kerosene lamp, revealing a pitch-black tunnel below. The air smelled of mold and dust. Gray-green concrete stairs wound downward into darkness. I flinched back. "Why don't you go ahead?" I suggested. Hisoka said nothing, merely nodded, and led the way down. The stairs were narrow. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks, but I felt like we were descending endlessly. In the dim lamplight, I saw childish drawings on the concrete walls, not graffiti, but simple sketches. And odd marks. Could have been mold, water stains, or dried blood. I didn't want to admit it, but the last possibility seemed most likely. The deeper we went, the stronger the stench of blood became. I kept close to Hisoka, nearly stepping on his heels multiple times. After another stretch of stairs, Hisoka stopped. "If you're scared, I can lead you by the hand." "No." I brushed past, muttering, "I don't need a pervert's hand." I stumbled backward into him, rubbing my sore nose. "What difference does it make? We've held hands before." That was before I realized how perverted you are. I edged away, scanning the darkness. "So do me a favor, keep your distance. I hate shoe polishers." He blinked. "Is it too late to say yes to marriage now?" At 10 years old, this felt like a haunted house adventure. My heart raced, adrenaline, fear, thrill. Hisoka led, and soon we reached the bottom. The corridor opened into a larger room. The walls were lined with torture instruments, foreign shapes, but unmistakably torture tools. Overhead, yellow floodlights glowed. I glanced at Hisoka's lamp. An ancient relic in this setting, why would he bring it? It's dim, dangerous, almost perverse. "We're here." Hisoka paused. I peeked around him. At the far end sat a black-haired boy in an iron chair, head lowered. His limbs were chained to the legs, lifeless, like a huge, dead butterfly. Chapter 19. The dirty white shirt was torn in several places and hung loosely on his frail body. Scars of varying severity marked his skin, crusted with dried blood. The boy slumped in the chair, head bowed, half-long black hair hanging lifelessly. He looked nothing like the gangster boss I'd pictured, no gold chain, no beer belly, no tattoos, just a skinny teenager. Seeing this gray, defeated boy made my chest tighten with unexpected sadness. Is he dead? I quietly grabbed Hisaka's wrist. No. He just fainted. I released Hisaka's hand and stepped forward. Hisaka didn't stop me, he retreated to the wall, watching. This was Fish, the target Illumi had searched so hard for. I leaned over the chair and gently brushed the boy's hair away from his forehead, revealing his pale face. His delicate features were even more heartbreaking close up. He didn't react. His cracked lips were stained dark red, and he looked drained. One condition for his ability is that he holds the main Nen card. Illumi crippled both his hands, so he's useless now. Technically, he could be killed whenever, but I have no interest. Better wait for Illumi to return and do it properly, Hisaka explained offhandedly. A strange emotion stirred inside me, like a small ball endlessly spinning, a void in my chest that I couldn't identify. Is that the feeling of watching life fade away? This was my first time, and it was haunting, realizing how fragile a human life can be. A phone rang, snapping me back. Hisaka pulled out a phone, the screen flashing. Hello? He answered. After a brief chat, it's Illumi. He hung up. Illumi needs me back. Why don't you stay here for a bit? He suggested. I nodded. I'm not alone. He's here. Hisaka chuckled and turned to go. Then, the boy behind me began to cough, a sharp, painful cough that echoed in the basement. Oh, you're awake, Hisaka said. Fish, I murmured, I want to stay here a while. Can I? Hisaka hesitated. Fine. But don't do anything reckless, you might get killed. I won't. I spoke quietly. Leave your lamp when you go. The boy's ragged breath slowed as I used a torn piece of shirt to wipe his face. My palm felt sticky with blood, but I said, sorry, no handkerchief. Didn't want to ruin my skirt. He took a few weak breaths. Then, with gentle eyes, he smiled. Thank you. The needle pierced my head, lots of blood. Did your hands take a hit? I'm sorry. Nice words don't work on me, I said, folding the cloth and placing it in his pocket. I'm not trying to charm you, he replied softly. Sure. I let my gaze shift away from his severed arms, neatly cut, exposing tissue. I couldn't bear to stare. Wait. Those needles in Illumi's room, were they his weapons? I hesitated. Then said, in a strange voice, does it hurt? I barely recognized myself. He chuckled lightly. Yes. But your face looks off, maybe too long underground. You okay? I shook my head. I'll be fine. There was no point dwelling. Now wasn't the time. What's your name? I asked, regaining composure. I needed to sound indifferent, a killer's companion isn't meant to show pity. My name is Yu. Just call me Yu. He still looked pure, almost ethereal, a white lotus in a ruined basement. Something about him felt painfully familiar. You're lying. Fish is your code name. Tell me your real name. He shook his head. I'm not lying. My name is Fish. It's what someone important named me. I have no other name. Someone important? He laughed softly. Then hushed me. Shh shh shh. Please keep it secret. I want to protect her. I was about to ask who she was when I heard voices upstairs, Hisaka and Illumi returning. Hisaka hadn't closed the cellar door. I glanced at him, uncertain, but stayed quiet. I picked up the lamp and stepped back. Even if you kill them all, the Marine Animal Protection Society won't disappear, Fish said suddenly. His voice was gentle, but I froze. What? I looked at him, confused. He gave a faint smile, black eyelashes trembling. For the fish that's killed in the wild will be reborn in the tank. I heard him clearly, a chilling prophecy echoing in the basement. Chapter 20. The fish didn't last until 8 p.m., Illumi killed him. Illumi disposed of the body, and I couldn't bring myself to return to the basement. My chest felt burdened with a heavy stone. I didn't have the courage to face what remained of him. Hisaka said Illumi kills swiftly and cleanly, so even in death, the fish wouldn't suffer long. I curled up on the sofa, staring blankly at the rum-flavored ice cream in my hand. Illumi had bought it after returning. He'd scooped it with a plastic spoon, letting the cool cream mist soothe him, a sweet, slightly bitter treat under the warm lights. What the fish meant when he said, "The fish that died in the wilderness will be reborn in the chamber," I still couldn't tell. Was he referring to himself? Would the Marine Animal Protection Society rise again? My mind was a mess. I hadn't shared those words with Illumi or Hisaka, because Fish begged me to keep them secret. This organization would soon crumble. But I wanted to honor his last wish. At 7:50 p.m., Illumi left the room. 15 minutes later, he returned, carrying a teddy bear and smelling faintly of blood. He tucked it in and left, disappearing into the bathroom. I studied the bear. "Hello," I whispered. The toy sat quietly, black button eyes unblinking. "Hello," I replied to my own voice. Then the silence collapsed under waves of grief. I hugged the bear tightly, tears staining its ear. I told myself I'd accept this. But I'm still useless, I murmured, heart aching. It was the 7th night since I arrived in this world. Hisaka burst in the next morning. "Hey, get up." Being with them meant I'd never sleep in. Sunlight and a cool breeze drifted through the window. I yawned and asked Hisaka if something was wrong. "My dear disciple," he grinned, "you remember why I brought you here, don't you?" Fragments of memory clicked, the oath of apprentice. I dragged myself up, washed, ate breakfast, and joined them in the living room. Illumi stood by the wall, carefully cleaning his needles. Suddenly, the mood grew formal. My stomach clenched, like a student awaiting a test. "How much do you know about mind ability?" Hisaka asked, hands folded. "Nothing," I admitted. "Excellent, honest little apple," he chuckled. "Then let me teach you Nen, the 4 core types: enhancement, emission, manipulation, transmutation, and control methods, 10, Zetsu, Ren, Hatsu." Hisaka seemed oddly nervous, maybe he cared more than he let on. For the next 2 hours, he patiently explained Nen, energy control, and specialized techniques. It all sounded so alien, yet logical. I wondered, could I really learn this? I requested a notebook from Illumi, and scribbled every concept. At the end, Hisaka smiled and teased, "All right, now I'm going to rip open your sperm orifice to input Nen directly." "Wait, didn't you warn that forcing Nen could kill me?" "Possibly. But step-by-step training is so boring, and I'm not patient. Don't joke with people's lives." After some banter, I lost and he won, so here we were. He placed a hand on my back. My chest fluttered like a rabbit's heart. Then warmth and energy coursed through my skin, no pain, just a natural current. "So, holding energy around your body is 10, emitting more is Ren, sealing openings is Zetsu. Right?" I murmured, testing each. I could feel life energy radiating outward, curved at my will. This wasn't as hard as it sounded. "Hisaka, I have a question." I looked up, and found Hisaka frozen in awe. "You okay?" I asked him. "It's amazing." Illumi's calm voice floated over. I turned to see him approaching with 2 shopping bags. I didn't expect you'd pick it up so fast. Illumi smiled, handing over the bags. Yeah, surprised even me. Hisaka added, you're less a nen novice, more a silent veteran, like a sleeping supercomputer I just switched on. Good compliment, I thought, quietly flattered. Also, Illumi paused, you gave off a strong aura when you used your wish. Really? I didn't notice. Hisaka's breath caught, you're talented. Very excited. Maybe because you already sense nen presence, Illumi noted. You've used it, you just didn't know. That makes sense, Hisaka agreed. Okay, new gift time, Illumi finally said, pointing at the bags. I opened the first bag, and found JK-style school uniforms in various styles. Tears sprang to my eyes, I looked at Illumi in disbelief. What? Why? How did you? You didn't like the skirt I got before, he said quietly. I saw these styles were more like what you're wearing, so I used Hisaka's card to get you some. A warm ache filled me. He'd paid attention, he'd noticed I only had one outfit. I wanted to hug his face, but held back. Instead, I held the bag and bowed deeply. Thank you. Thank you so much. Illumi's almond eyes flickered, a faint blush on his cheeks, yet he remained composed. One more thing. He cleared his throat. A second bag. Curious, I opened it, and found a black onesie with a hood sporting cat ears and a tail. Illumi, really? I clenched my fists. Illumi cocked his head, do you not like it? I forced a smile. No, it's lovely. Hisaka giggled. Cute, I think suits you. Thank you. I tried to sound sincere. Hisaka quickly steered us back. Anyway, since you've learned the 4 basics, want to try them? He showed me Zetsu, total energy control to become undetectable. He vanished from sight, it was eerie. Then 10, enhancing body and reflexes. I lifted Illumi's sofa easily, tears of awe in my eyes. Illumi asked if I was overwhelmed, I shook my head and joked about being a Kong-sized Barbie. Hisaka frowned and mocked disappointment. Then Ren, pouring out even more chi. I refused. I don't want to be a muscular Lolita punching down trees. So Hisaka suggested a Mizumi-style test. Mizumi-style? I asked. He nodded, went to fetch water and ivy leaf. Illumi joined again, silent, curious. Hisaka instructed, use condensation. Concentration, gathering energy in my eyes. I summoned a soft pink gas above his palm. He asked, see it? I nodded. Pour into the water, observe flow. Each nen type has signature effects. He lifted his hand, I used transmutation to disguise water taste. I tried the water. Delicious bubblegum flavor. Hisaka beamed. Transmutation skill. Then Illumi did it, water started swirling leaves, manipulator signature. Finally, me. Energetic, hopeful. I pressed my hand over the cup. White mist swirled, and a gummy bear dropped into the water. We froze. A gummy bear? Not magma. They murmured, it's blueberry. I slammed the cup, blue air, and another gummy bear appeared, pink strawberry. Hisaka laughed until he nearly fell, giggling at the absurdity. Chapter 21. What I never expected was that Hisaka would actually use the gummy bears to make fun of me for a whole month. After the results of the 2 Mizumi Shiki sessions came out that day, Hisaka laughed so hard that he fell backwards. He said to me, from now on, you don't have to go out to buy candy if you want it. Just pour a glass of water and pluck a leaf. Among the new application techniques of Nen that I had learned, there was one called Gen that I had not tried yet. I kept the technique of practicing entanglement outside my body, clenched my right hand, and punched Hisaka in the stomach with a smile. Hisaka moved several meters back with the sofa, but he seemed to have realized that I was going to hit him. He must have used his energy to protect his body, so he was not injured. He was still laughing, and even Illumi, whose face normally showed little, had a smile on his lips. I was totally depressed. From that day on, Hisoka and Illumi began to take turns imparting their experiences to me and training me. As my telekinesis developed further, my basic physical fitness improved and the training grew more difficult. I was no longer the 10-year-old who ran out of breath after 800 meters. Now I can run 5 kilometers in one go without breaking a sweat or raising my heartbeat. Although I'm still far behind Hisoka and Illumi overall, this feeling, as if my life suddenly opened up, made me feel a little elated. It feels like the protagonist can dominate another world and reach the pinnacle after activating a golden finger. However, although the results were remarkable, the training process was extremely exhausting. On one hand, I didn't want others to see a 10-year-old girl carrying dozens of kilograms of barbells in broad daylight, so I pushed most physical training to the early morning. Hisoka and Illumi didn't object; if anything, they seemed to enjoy it. On the other hand, in addition to basic strength, the use of mind power, reaction drills, and other practical training wore me out. Usually, if I was a little careless, I'd be tripped by Hisoka's mental threads. Worse, he once stuck me to a passing car right in front of the door. Unable to break free, I chased that car more than 50 kilometers before I managed to stop the driver. When I left, I couldn't help but punch out a piece of glass from the door. Of course, the horror went far beyond that. The most frustrating part was Illumi's training methods. I didn't expect that this icy-faced man who usually seemed to care about me would take every opportunity to attack rather than train. Although Hisoka varied his training and didn't harm me seriously, Illumi would suddenly strike at any moment. If I didn't dodge or use Nen Flow to protect myself and see through his feints, I'd be punched away without mercy. Once, I hit the wall so hard it cracked in several places. Then there were the super-fast needles, too swift to dodge. Although smaller than usual, they would pierce straight through if they hit vitals. Ordinary entanglement couldn't stop them. Early on, Illumi targeted my limbs; later, the needles began aiming for potentially lethal zones. Several times they were shot straight at my eyebrow line or heart. Then came the electric shocks. If I fell asleep and couldn't dodge, I'd be knocked unconscious, but luckily, wouldn't die, and I always woke up within an hour. In that regard, Hisoka was less ruthless than Illumi. Perhaps born into an assassin family, Illumi had to endure inhuman training from childhood, and was practiced at teaching it. Unless injuries seriously affected my training, Illumi would forbid me from using Nen to heal. He said I must get used to pain so I wouldn't be at a disadvantage in real combat later. The training was brutal, but my rapid improvement amazed me. Every morning felt like a rebirth. The non-stop, high-intensity routine left me fatigued. Early on, I often fainted mid-session. Though we argued in daily life, when training began, Hisoka and Illumi showed no mercy. It was their rule, and the rule of this world. I couldn't complain because I knew their strictness was the greatest respect and tolerance they had for me. Gradually, I began to catch glimpses of Hisoka in our dodging drills, awaken from sleep to dodge Illumi's shocks, to detect Hisoka's invisible mental lines again, and to feel Illumi's needles being fired my way. Though I couldn't dodge all, I reacted the moment I sensed them. Now, Illumi's needles no longer pierced exactly where he aimed; they'd be deflected or would enter only partway because I condensed my energy on time. It stung badly. The intense training left little time for anything else. Yet whenever I cried over bleeding wounds, I'd see Demi's image flash through my mind. I remembered him smiling gently and saying, "It hurts. I know, it really does hurt. It hurt so much I couldn't even cry. It hurt so much my body trembled. It hurt so much I wished I could just die." Demi's hands were cut off, his body slashed with scars, a hole in his head from a mental nail. His blood ran until it could run no more. He was helpless. Didn't he feel trapped in an endless night, without a glimmer of light, just waiting for death and despair? The moment he fell into Illumi's hands, he must have known he couldn't escape. Light. I recalled the lifeless dark eyes of that boy, like rusty iron sheets. Only when he spoke of the girl did a barely perceptible light flicker, like a tassel dotting a black amber stone in sunlight, but it faded almost instantly, and he looked gently toward the empty ground, toward endless void. Suddenly, I felt I understood. To him, that light transcended his own life. That's why he could smile so gently at me and say, "It hurts," even knowing he was dying. In his eyes, she was always there. Perhaps, to him, she was so precious that thoughts of her gave him courage to die. But is that light really worth pursuing? Onlookers love to make casual speculations. Everyone is like this, I am no exception. But the real pros and cons? Only those involved can decide. If it's your wish, even hell can become salvation. I'm not strong. I don't have such unwavering beliefs. I'm not smart enough, nor driven. I get scared when I bleed, cry when I'm hurt. I'm just an ordinary person with an ordinary soul. In that world or this one, without that light, entering the ranks of the strong might only make me a background passerby, A, B, C, or D, silent and forgotten. Because whether in body or heart, it truly hurts. During this time, the tears I shed matched the blood I lost. Maybe that's why I grew so fond of drinking water. Illumi and Hisoka still bought me strange gadgets, and my 3 daily meals were hearty. Perhaps they feared that if I didn't eat well, I wouldn't have energy, and the training would stall. That punishment-like training lasted more than a month with no pause. From sobbing collapse to gradual adaptation, and eventually acceptance, my reflexes improved, but my sense of pain dulled. The smooth, fair skin of the young girl was now covered in scars and scabs. Sometimes, when I stood before the mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back. She wasn't me, Lynn Amber, but another person named Amber, who shared my memories. The girl in the mirror gave me a cold look, and I realized my hair had grown significantly longer. Regarding Nen mastery, I've come far since I began. All facets of my aura have strengthened. Hisoka commented that my development is balanced rather than extraordinary in any one area. Nevertheless, unless I face a truly powerful foe, this will suffice for self-protection. Besides, my true strength isn't in these areas. The power to make wishes is my trump card. During this period, Illumi would sometimes leave for a few days on assassination missions. Later, as I grew stronger, he'd bring me along and assign me simpler targets. But I wasn't there to kill, I just had to approach quietly and insert Illumi's mind needle behind their heads. If discovered, I'd subdue them and then finish the task. Though I knew I was deceiving myself, being no better than the pot calling the kettle black, I still didn't want to kill anyone. I won't kill unless I must. A month flashed by, and I didn't expect that this grueling, tense life would finally end on a sunny afternoon. Hey hunters! Short cult break. Did you wonder what happened to Tugon's fishing rod? It appears in the Heavens Arena arc. For the last time, then vanishes forever. He never uses it again, even though it was part of his toolset early on. Kinda sad. I liked it lol. Rip fishing rod. Now let's keep going. Chapter 22. I haven't seen Hisoka for 2 days. In addition to Hisoka's disappearance, Illumi also seemed a bit distracted during my training. He bought things more often, likely because he knew I love sweets. The fridge at home is now stocked with desserts, breads, and ice creams. Illumi said since it wasn't his card being used, it didn't matter how much he bought. After more than a month of adapting to each other, I'd gotten used to this routine. So when Illumi said this, I nodded in agreement. Hisoka seemed like a scapegoat, yet he didn't care at all that we were using his card. One sunny afternoon, Illumi, who had mysteriously begun easing up on me, didn't chase me into sparring. Instead, He called me to the pavilion in the garden. Summer was already fading. Autumn is coming soon. I walked slowly into the garden, where I saw Hisaka, missing for 2 days. He squinted his golden eyes and greeted me with his usual smile. "You're here, little apple." I was momentarily dazed, but the moment I saw Hisaka, I froze. It was still him, but that hairstyle? His curly red hair was slicked back like a scoop of ice cream, and the loose strands no longer framed his face, revealing a smooth forehead. It wasn't unattractive, but after seeing Hisaka with his usual messy red hair every day, this sleek new look caught me off guard. And it just looked weird. I suppose it was Mr. Hisaka's aesthetic, I just had no sense for it. "Are you in love?" I asked hesitantly, unable to understand his sudden hairstyle change. With lovely little apple around, how could I have time to date someone else? Hisaka teased with a smile. I flinched and said, "Stop it. Don't make me cringe. Even men need a change of hairstyle and mood sometimes." "That's thoroughly in line with your narcissistic pervert personality." I walked into the pavilion, dragged a chair out, and sat down, inspecting Hisaka. Besides the haircut, he now had 2 new designs painted on his cheeks, a blue water droplet on the left and a red star on the right. They weren't tattoos, just paint. I'd had this suspicion from our first meeting, between his hypocritical smile, the playing cards, the bubblegum-scented breath, the names of his nen abilities, flimsy fake appearance and stretchable love, and now this face paint. He was full of circus-like eccentricity. It was hard not to associate him with a trickster clown or bizarre magician. When we first met, he even said he used to be in a circus. But his enthusiasm, I always felt it bordered obsession, reminding me of American clown serial killers. Clearing my throat, I steadied myself. "You must have used tons of hairspray to hold it like that, right?" "That's true, and I have to carry hairspray to keep it up. Kind of troublesome." "So you disappeared for 2 days just to style your hair?" "Of course not. I was out doing serious business." "Business?" I eyed him suspiciously. This guy's business couldn't be wholesome. "You found a new toy, didn't you?" Illumi interjected. "I can't think of anything else Hisaka did that constitutes serious business." "As expected, you understand me best." Illumi. Hisaka glanced at him with a smirk. "Then what is it? Why did you call me here today?" I picked up the cup of herbal tea set before me, sipped, and asked again. "Hisaka and I are leaving this place," Illumi said calmly. "Oh? Is something wrong? When will you be back?" I enjoyed the sweet warmth of the tea. "I'm afraid we won't be coming back," Illumi said. He looked at me blankly, one hand under his chin. I paused mid-sip. "Why? Is it a suicide mission?" I asked bluntly. "Oh my, that's incredibly merciless," Hisaka said, still smiling. "But no, fortunately not. I've received very few commissions lately, and they're almost all local. Missions too far are given to others in the family. So staying here was fine, but I can't stay in one place forever. I need to return home. My mother hasn't seen me in a while and wants me to help take care of my brother," Illumi explained. "Going forward, I won't only be accepting commissions in this city. In short, we're bidding you goodbye this time," Hisaka added. His unusually soft tone was spellbinding, his golden eyes, like honeyed wine, drew me in, sweet yet dangerous. I didn't know how to feel. I never expected they'd leave. Though training was brutal and these two were strange. I should have realized long ago, it had to happen. I was just an ordinary child taken in by Hisaka. He had no obligation to keep me. Same for Illumi. They have their lives. I was the unexpected one. Am I the extra person? Vision blurred, I realized I was crying. Tears streamed down my cheeks uncontrollably. I was 18 now, not a little kid, but I still couldn't stop crying over something so small. I didn't want this. I didn't want to. It hurts. I'm sorry. I'm so useless, I said, hurriedly wiping tears away, but it only made me weep harder. I bit my lip to restrain myself as my body shook until I couldn't hold it anymore. Crybaby. I loathe myself for this. Am I going to be abandoned by you? I sobbed, pressing the back of my hand to my face, but the tears fell even faster. Then, half blind, a large hand pressed gently atop my head and began to smooth my hair. The familiar warm touch soothed me. I opened my eyes to see Illumi, his expression soft as he gently stroked my hair. Years later, I still find it unbelievable that Illumi, that cold, robotic figure, after gently rubbing my hair, spoke with such calm kindness, "We're saying goodbye so you can better begin your journey and find your own path." Now, I wonder, maybe those words were sugar-coated for my sake. But in that moment, they were all I needed. Maybe they thought I wasn't fit to be an assassin companion, or perhaps they just wanted me to find my own life. But I now know, they never truly abandoned me. In a world where I stood alone, I can't imagine where I'd be, or what I'd be doing, if I hadn't met them. The more than a month we shared has become a precious memory. Yet much still eludes me, there's so much more to explore. Perhaps only through parting can I continue to grow. They have their lives, and mine is only starting its prologue. Seeing my tears subside, Illumi patted my head once more. His touch, magical, calming, quieted me instantly. I wiped my face, accepted the refilled cup from him, and drank some water. "You are such a crybaby," Hisaka teased, holding his chin. "Stop nagging," I snapped weakly but defiantly. "Illumi and I have prepared some gifts for you," Hisaka said, ignoring my annoyed expression, a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. "Could it be another weird Barbie doll skirt?" I asked, displeased. Over the past month, my room had been littered with such oddities. "No. This time, it's a serious gift." Hisaka feigned solemnity, then pulled from his bag a watch and a card, handing them to me. Because I can't read, I didn't recognize most items on the form. I've been so busy training that I forgot to learn reading. Now they're gone, I guess literacy needs to go on the agenda. And that card next to the form. It looked familiar. I stared at it. Then a vision popped into my mind of a kind uncle swiping it at a pause. "Isn't that my bank card?" I looked at the card in surprise, then at Hisaka, and asked curiously, "Where did you get this?" "That's my bank card, right?" "From the bag you had with you," Hisaka replied. "You either dropped it randomly or ship staff found it and returned it. Everything else was placed in your room." I blinked, speechless. My bag had been missing for over a month, containing my small savings and ID. It was my fault. Seeing me lower my head, Hisaka continued, "I saved some money in it. If Illumi and I keep buying at our current pace, it should last you about a year, right?" "Ah?" I froze 3 seconds before realizing what he'd said. My financial savior. If I hadn't just cried dry, I'd have cried again from relief. I knew Hisaka was wealthy, but this generous. I mentally forgave all my earlier curses on him. He's the rich person I want to be with. With this money, I can address my future needs. I won't starve on the streets just because I'm young and can't find work. "But how did you know my bank PIN?" I asked suspiciously. "The PIN's written on the back of the card." "Oh. Now, what about that form besides the bank card?" Noticing my gaze, Hisaka smiled and continued, "This is your registration form for the hunter exam. I've already filled in your info and signed you up. It officially starts in January next year, so there's still 4 months. Take it and sign it yourself. When you leave in a few days, I'll mail it." "Hunter exam?" I echoed in confusion. "In simple terms, it's a test. Once you pass, you get a hunter license. That license makes many things easier, making money, accessing resources. And I think being a hunter suits you. So Hisaka, you're a hunter too? Is that how you're so rich? No, I have many ways to make money, but I'm not a hunter. Then why do you suddenly want me to take it? You have nothing else to do, so why not take the test? But I can't even read, can't even sign my name. Don't worry. There's hardly any written test in the hunter exam. Most are physical strength or combat-based. You can already punch a big hole in Illumi's house wall. You'll pass easily, Hisaka said, smirking cunningly. You bastard, I yelled, flinging the teacup at him. Who punches holes? You pervert. Hisaka dodged effortlessly, and the teacup flew over and shattered against the neighboring house. It wasn't far, just across a road and 2 gardens, maybe 300 to 500 m. Looks like I need to tone it down. I folded my arms and scowled, staying silent. This is from me, Illumi said, pushing his hand across the table after Hisaka finished. I saw a cell phone and a villa key. What are these? I asked tentatively. This phone is new. SIM is registered under your ID. Phone bills paid. Our numbers are saved in it. You can call us if you need anything. Illumi looked at me with his wide, gentle eyes and added, this is a spare key to this villa. You can live here forever. I don't think you have anywhere else to go. Chapter 23. I didn't expect that these two would care about me so much. Giving both money and house keys feels like inheriting a legacy. No, more like receiving charity. I sincerely thanked them both. They told me not to forget my training when I'm alone and said they'd return by mid-October to wrap up the mission we'd agreed upon. Hisaka and Illumi stayed at the villa for one last night. The next morning, they left without saying goodbye, or even greeting me. I'd grown used to their schedule, so I woke at dawn, suddenly alert. A cool breeze rushed through the open window, stirring the curtains. Breakfast awaited downstairs, my favorite jam-slathered bread and some milk. The milk was cool enough to drink, but there was only one serving. It didn't feel real. The two of them had really left. Sitting at the table, I stared at my bread, blankly chewing, my mind wandering. Summer vacation must be starting at home now. How would my parents react? They'd likely be worried. Would Inky and Ash miss me? And my old body, what's become of it? Empty shell, vanished, or living out my old life on its own track? No answers. Just guesses. If not for Hisaka and Illumi, I'd never have adapted so quickly. But I can't say I was happy. Maybe fear of death faded, but I still dreaded physical pain and psychological torment. This month of training was like enduring the 18 levels of hell, layer upon layer of fresh scars and scabs. Healing was agony, the itching unbearable. Illumi instructed me to stay still to speed healing, so I avoided showers and barely dared move in sleep. Even slight shifts brought stabbing pain. I felt like a battlefield veteran, decorated in scars. Yet just a month ago, I was a crybaby at the slightest fall. Hisaka warned me, no matter how much I hate fighting, my abilities would eventually surface. When they did, hordes would swarm, and none would show mercy. For their benefit, people will do anything, especially thieves. Why work long and hard when they can prey on someone like me? He said 90% would choose coercion over effort. Time and space rewinded, I might do feats no one could, but no one cares how it costs me, only that they can profit. He said human selfishness and desire are endless. So, no matter how close someone seems in the future, never reveal your abilities. The one smiling at you could later turn and stab you. Hisaka, Illumi, even I might turn someday. Special folks can't truly trust anyone. He said, all the pain you endure, all the loneliness you bear, must be shouldered in silence. Everything is to protect yourself. You have no choice. I realized maybe Hisaka and Illumi never intended to stay long. Given our identities and complexities, they didn't want me turning into another tool or others exploiting me. So they taught me as much as they could, within a limited time, so I'd be able to protect myself. I only remember that conversation. Hisaka nagged like an old father, never so carelessly revealed telepathy as I did when we first met. To survive, I must keep abilities secret. I even complained that they'd forced me to reveal by threat. Hisaka simply shook his head. It's different now. A jumble of memories clouded my mind. I felt lost in the coming days. Thankfully, Illumi would return for the mission, and then there's the hunter exam. It gave me something to look forward to. My short-sleeved shirt showed scars crisscrossing my arms. I traced a patch of intact skin and remembered my wish. I thought it stupid at the time, just a dream. But it brought so much trouble. Hisaka's words were true, but I don't regret it. Constraints and vows are unbreakable rules in this world. Painful as they are, my power is priceless, something many crave. Sooner or later, everyone reaches a point where they'll give everything, even pay an extreme price, for their dreams. Then, better to act than do nothing. Humans are paradoxical, afraid to give, but longing for connection. I spent the whole morning dazed on the carpet, surrounded by pink dolls. They were too girly, like pink bubbles about to burst. There were giant teddy bears, little yellow robot figurines among candy wrappers. The formerly bare table was cluttered with odd accessories. I had no interest. I preferred my cold, daily style. In the closet with uniforms and sailor suits lay Lolita outfits, cosplay, mini cheongsams, and maid dresses, purchased by Illumi. Initially, I was shocked. If not for his calm demeanor, I'd have called him a pervert like Hisaka. But observing him long enough, I realized Illumi simply enjoyed dress-up and shopping. Though he has strict limits, you must never use your own money for his purchases. That makes sense. When you're spending someone else's money, you go wild. Bored, I lay on the carpet, fiddling with my phone. Though it's a phone, it's nothing more than a PHS, just calls and texts. The color matched Illumi's usual style. It's pink again. I still don't know where he gets these weird gadgets. I stayed zoned until noon, then realized doing nothing wasn't good. Time to clean up. This villa never seemed clean. I only saw it once, when Illumi used his mind needles to control the next-door cleaning staff. He said the needles didn't harm, and he'd release them afterward. It bothered me. Illumi won't show mercy to killers, why show mercy to them? He said, too few residents, they'd notice otherwise. He was practical, after all. Cleaning was exhausting, and painful when sweating. I managed only a few rooms before giving up. Then thought, why not use my ability? So I laid back on the bed and made a wish. The dice showed a 2, and I slept for half an hour. My body didn't feel stiff, instead, I felt refreshed. And it was worth it. The house was clean, wall cracks vanished, garden weeds trimmed. The villa seemed alive again. Chapter 24. I didn't expect that these two actually cared about me so much. Giving me both money and house keys felt like inheriting a legacy. No, more like receiving charity. I sincerely thanked them, and they told me a few more things, not to slack in training when I'm alone, and that they'd return by mid-October to finish the mission we'd agreed upon. Hisaka and Illumi stayed at the villa one last night. The next morning, they left without saying goodbye, or even greeting me. I'd grown attuned to their schedule, so I woke at dawn, electricity coursing through me. A cool breeze drifted in through the open window, stirring the curtains. Downstairs, breakfast awaited, my favorite jam-slathered bread and lukewarm milk. But there was only one portion. It felt unreal. They had really gone. At the table, I stared at my bread, chewing absent-mindedly as my mind wandered. Summer vacation must be starting at home. How sad will my parents be? Will Inky and Ash miss me? And my original body, what has become of it? Empty shell, fading away, or carrying on my old life as if nothing happened. No answers came. If not for Hisoka and Illumi, I never would have adjusted this quickly. But I can't say I was happy. Maybe I feared physical pain and mental torment less, but I still feared them deeply. The past month felt like the 18 levels of hell. Fresh scars, scabs, endless itching. Illumi had me lie still to heal, skipping showers and barely moving in sleep. Even slight shifts brought unbearable pain. I feel like a battlefield veteran now, covered in battle scars. But a month ago, I was still a crybaby. Hisoka warned, no matter how much I hate violence, my abilities will reveal me eventually. When they do, people will swarm for selfish gain, nobody will care what it costs me. 90% would force me and take the rewards. They'd never ask how much it cost me. He said human selfishness and desire never end. So no matter how close someone seems, never reveal your power. The person smiling at you today, Hisoka, Illumi, or me, could stab you tomorrow. Those with gifts can trust no one. He said, bear all the pain, all the loneliness, without complaint, only that way can you protect yourself. There is no other choice. I think Hisoka and Illumi never intended to stay. Given our identities and circumstances, they didn't want me to become a tool for them, or for others. They taught me as much as they could in the time given, so I'd know how to defend myself. One memory stands out, Hisoka nagging me like a father, never reveal telepathy so easily, because survival means secrecy. I complained that they forced me to reveal it, under threat. Hisoka only shook his head and said, it's different now. Memories jumble in my mind. I feel unmoored by the days ahead. At least Illumi will return for the mission. And then the hunter exam. That gives me something to hold on to. I looked at my arms, crisscrossed with scars, then traced a patch of intact skin and remembered my wish. I thought it foolish, just a dream. But it brought all this. Hisoka's words ring true, yet I don't regret it. In this world, vows and constraints are immutable. Painful though they are, my power is something few can even fathom, and many dream of. Soon or later, everyone reaches a point where they will risk everything, even pay a terrible price, for what they want. And then, better to act than do nothing. Humans are contradictory creatures, afraid to give, yet yearning for connection. I spent the morning sprawling on the carpet amidst pink dolls, too girly, like fragile bubbles ready to burst. Giant teddy bears, tiny yellow robot figures in candy wrappers. The table was piled with weird accessories. I had no interest. I prefer my usual cold, practical style. In my closet are uniforms, sailor suits, and also Lolita dresses, cosplays, cheongsams, and maid outfits bought by Illumi. At first I was stunned. If he hadn't been so calm, I would have called him a pervert like Hisoka. But I realized Illumi simply enjoys dressing me up, and shopping. His rule, use only cards that aren't mine. That explains it, spending someone else's money makes it irresistible. Bored, I lay fiddling with my phone. It was just a basic mobile, no games, just calls. And in Illumi's trademark pink color. I still don't know where he gets these odd gadgets. Hours slipped by until noon. I realized doing nothing was pointless. I needed to clean. This villa isn't usually kept tidy. I only saw it once, when Illumi used needles to control two cleaners next door. He said they harmed nobody, then released them. It bothered me. He spares cleaners but not killers. Illumi said, too few people around to notice otherwise. Practical as ever. Cleaning the villa alone was exhausting, and sweat tightened my wounds. After a few rooms, I gave up. Then I had an idea, use my ability. I lay back and made a wish. The dice showed 2. I slept for half an hour. When I woke, I felt refreshed. And it was worth it. The house was spotless, cracks in walls healed, weeds cleared. The villa felt alive again. After Hisoka and Illumi left, I settled into a completely leisurely life. The villa is about a 15-minute run from the city center. I can't drive, and a bike is slower, so I usually walk, or if I'm lucky, hitch a silent ride from someone passing by. A few days ago, when I swiped my bank card, I discovered that the money Hisoka put in really wasn't small. Conservatively, if I lived frugally, it could last me 4 to 5 years. Technology in this world is slightly behind where I came from. Many electronic devices don't exist, but basic TVs, computers, and phones are available. I focused on appliances because I initially wanted 2 floor cleaning robots, one upstairs, one downstairs, to avoid cleaning. But they don't even exist here. I ended up buying a vacuum cleaner, the best I could do. I've since learned that if a concept doesn't exist here, not even Nen can create it. Honestly, I hate housework. I'll only use my ability when absolutely necessary. That's how my relaxed, happy routine began. I loved visiting the city center for shopping, clothes, snacks, daily items. My bathroom cabinet is bursting with bath salts and shampoos of every scent. I indulged in anything I wanted, even things I didn't really need. It looked like I was happy, right? I intended to save money, but I couldn't control my shopping impulses. Buying things eased my anxiety, filled an emptiness I couldn't name. Though I accepted that Hisoka and Illumi were gone, I couldn't adjust that quickly. Sometimes I feel empty. But loneliness is just part of being alone. At the local bookstore, the kind Aunt approved, as I bought a thick dictionary, 2 elementary school workbooks, and a set of Spartan Warriors primers to learn reading. I feared it would be a massive project, but I discovered writing here is actually easier than in my world. Here's why. The language system is already familiar, I don't need to learn a new language. Characters are one-to-one. Each pronunciation matches a single character. No homophones, no polyphony. The total number of characters isn't huge, with most derived simply from others. Using the primers, I memorized around 100 characters in just 3 days. Honestly, I didn't expect the writing system to be so straightforward. Once I recognized words, I began reading novels before bed to train myself. Recognition doesn't equal fluency, sometimes I still hesitate, but reading more helps. Before I knew it, it was September. I'd lived alone for over half a month, with no new goals, discoveries, or feelings, just growing comfort in this society. I bought a TV, though programming was sparse. Still, watching the news prevents the house from feeling too quiet. Living alone in a large suburban villa, it's impossible not to feel spooked sometimes. The weather's cooler now, so I switched my uniform. Today, a white long-sleeved shirt and a Yamabuki-colored mid-length skirt. I'm not drawn to the color, but I adore the name. Yamabuki feels like a cool autumn mountain breeze. This afternoon I found a delightful shop full of small, cute handmade items, dip pens, colored inks, wind chimes, trinkets. I wanted everything. I thought, why not decorate Illumi's empty house too? The piece that stole my heart was a small straw fox, a hissing little red fox that I had to have. I spent the entire afternoon wandering the shopping mall, until I suddenly realized it was raining. Maybe due to this city's geography, climate is dry. Even though it's midsummer, I've only seen rain once in nearly 2 months. Rain came with a weather shift. The setting sun vanished under gloomy clouds. Massive dark blue formations pressed near. Then raindrops began tapping on windows and eaves, growing louder, until the whole city played a grand symphony of rain. It was breathtakingly beautiful. I love rainy days the most. Bag filled with my purchases, I hummed as I stepped into the rain. Cold, colorless droplets drenched me, inch by inch. Some not yet healed cuts stung, yet I savored the sensation too much to stop. Without an umbrella, I ran alone through the silent, wet city. I splashed through puddles, walls and streets blurring past. Almost no one was out. Then, suddenly, a golden flash caught my eye. I braked, but still slipped. What was that? A golden retriever? Shaking from confusion, lightning split the sky and thunder roared. Rain poured stronger, soaking my clothes to my skin, blurring my vision. At the entrance of a narrow alley, I spotted a blond boy curled up on the ground. My heart jolted. I rushed forward and grabbed his arm. He stirred beneath my grasp, lifting a clouded, lifeless gaze, his emotions far away, like a marionette cut loose. I recognized him, the boy who handed me water months ago. I never expected to find him like this, after more than 2 months. Chapter 25. With thunder roaring under the dark sky, a small body crouched in the wall's shadow. Rain soaked his golden hair, some strands plastering against his dull, drenched face. He still wore his blue clothes, but they were so filthy that their original look was unrecognizable. From head to toe, he looked like a forsaken doll tossed in the trash. I stared, stunned. Is this really the same boy I met? Why is he here? Where is the other boy who was with him? Countless questions flooded my mind. The 3 men who tormented him that night flashed through my memory. A bitter taste spread across my tongue. Why? Was it revenge? A misjudgment by Hisaka? My thoughts scrambled. I bit my lip, trying to steady myself. Then I lifted the boy from the ground. He didn't resist or respond. Without hesitation, I carried him and sprinted back wildly. God, please, don't let anyone see me. Being mistaken for a Barbie doll hurts a girl's pride. It took less than 10 minutes to reach Ilumi's villa. I carried him to an upstairs guest room, noticing immediately how his body radiated high heat. He was burning up. Inside the room, I stripped him of his dirty clothes to protect the bedding, then tucked him into the bed. Only then did I realize how useful Nen could be. That strange strength I'd unintentionally developed. I fetched 2 clean quilts from the closet and covered him. His eyes were half open, heavy with drowsiness, like he might slip away any moment. I hurried to the first aid kit and grabbed a thermometer and some antipyretic medicine. 39.6 degrees Celsius, dangerous? He looked almost unconscious. How could I give him medicine? In dramas, they spoon it in, but is that safe? I feared he'd vomit. I had no real experience with fevers. When my parents were sick, they care for each other, not relying on me. I pour water, maybe tell a story. Fevers rarely got this bad. Should I take him to a hospital instead? My mind raced. But the medicine was ready. I decided to try it first. I placed the small powdered vial on the bedside table. I propped him up, pried his mouth open with a spoon, and spooned the medicine in. Within seconds, he coughed violently. I patted his back, soothing. Can't swallow? If this doesn't work, I'll take you to a hospital. Anything else hurt? He bent forward, clutching his chest, coughing for a long while. I wanted to carry him to a hospital, even though the dark storm and soaked clothes would attract attention. No guardian, 2 young children, runaway suspicions? No, Hisaka said never let anyone discover I'm a Nen user. To my surprise, he suddenly spoke, weakly, breathless, grabbing my arm. It's so bitter. Bitter? With gummy bears? Once he woke a little, medicine administration became easier. He swallowed willingly and shook his head when asked if he was in pain elsewhere. I tossed a candy at him, then fetched ice cubes from the fridge, sealing them in a bag to apply to his forehead. High fevers make people delirious, right? I've never had a fever before, sickness always happens to others. Still, I went with my instinct. After taking the medicine, he drifted into a deep sleep, slipping back into nightmares. At that moment, I realized I hadn't changed clothes since I entered. I sat silently, then left the room and headed to the bathroom. I took a quick shower, changed into warm pajamas, and threw his dirty clothes into the washing machine. I sneezed, feeling a chill key hit me. I might be next. At home, I remembered how my mother used to brew ginger sugar water when I had a cold, sweet, spicy comfort. I searched the kitchen, found some beautifully packaged brown sugar cubes and fresh ginger in the fridge. I set a small pot to boil water. Cooking instant noodles is the closest I get to actual cooking. These days, Hisaka and Illumi handled meals, usually takeout or Illumi's cooking. Since they left, the kitchen had gone cold. With water now boiling, I darted back to the boys' room to check. Heat calmed, complexion better, breathing more even. The sugar water boiled for nearly an hour and I poured it into a small glass bowl, keeping the rest warm under a lid. I wrapped a blanket around myself, sat on the sofa with the bowl, and turned on the TV. Sleep came quickly. I remembered to switch off the TV before dozing. Time passed, my senses stirred by faint noises near the bedroom door. My training made me instinctively defensive. I sprang up to a protective stance. Standing there, wrapped in a quilt by moonlight, was the boy. "You're awake," I said, breathless. He spoke softly, his voice heavy with sorrow and confusion beyond his years. "Where is this place?" No artificial light, only pale moonlight bathed the room. Rain had stopped, and the night felt cleansed. The moon and stars shone clear and bright, reflecting on his cheek. His clear, restrained brown eyes stared at me in the soft glow. His rain-washed hair, gold and silver beneath the moonlight, seemed to embody his inner desolation. He looked frail, as if he might vanish, yet he stood there, embodying loneliness and despair. His silent sadness froze me for a moment. My throat clenched as I struggled to speak. I lowered my head, took a slow breath, then met his gaze and managed a gentle smile. "This is my friend's home. He's away on business. I live here by myself."